30 years of marriage shattered in a single night. I came home early, bouquet in hand, ready to surprise my wife. But the surprise was mine. From the hallway, I heard her laugh. "It's just a stupid meal ticket. Hell never suspect." My heart stopped, disbelief giving way to cold determination. I grabbed my camera, recording everything: the whispers, the taunts, the ultimate betrayal. Rage burned within me, but I stayed silent. I would make them regret ever crossing me. What would you do if the person you trusted most destroyed everything? It's the old saying, the husband is often the last to know. In my case, I wasn't the absolute last, but I was pretty far down the list. I've always been seen as laid back. Not much bothered me even when my work network was acting up or if my software had issues. But that changed one night when I found myself facing a familiar scenario. It had been a tough week. The previous Sunday, I spent hours driving to my client's plant. Then, from Monday to Wednesday, I worked long hours fixing their network and database problems. By noon on Thursday, I had everything up and running ahead of schedule. My client was pleased. He saved money, and his system was better than ever. I felt good since Saturday marked our 30th anniversary. I planned to surprise my wife, Bev, by getting home early. She had been a bit unhappy with my long work trips, but when a client's business is on the line, you do what needs to be done. A little background here. I run a small computer consulting business that I built from the ground up. It has been running for over 30 years and has a solid reputation. Bev and I got married shortly after I finished college. I wasn't the most handsome man, but I wasn't hard on the eyes either. I tried to stay in decent shape and have kept my weight steady throughout my adult life. Bev wasn't a beauty queen, but I found her very attractive. Even after having our 2 kids, she maintained her lovely figure and worked in a downtown office, which gave her the ability to buy a new car every few years and fresh clothes. I never minded that. It was what made her happy. I could easily provide for us both, but she chose to keep working. Our kids grew up to be responsible adults. Colleen, the oldest, married her boyfriend right after high school. They were happy and treated each other well. They didn't have kids yet, but they were trying. Jamie followed his sister's lead 2 years later and married his high school sweetheart. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl, who Bev and I didn't see often enough. They were a typical busy family. So I pulled into my driveway around 11 p.m. Thursday night after nearly a 10-hour drive. I noticed a strange car parked at the curb but didn't think much of it. Bev's car was probably in the garage. I usually parked outside because I needed the garage for more important things, like tools and toys. Today, I brought a bouquet of 15 yellow roses, her favorite, one for every 2 years we had been married. I entered the house quietly, hoping to surprise Bev. I thought she would be in bed, maybe watching some TV before sleeping. But before I could see anything, I heard sounds that told me it wasn't the TV. Bev was making noises, and a man's voice was saying hurtful things to her. Shocked, I didn't take the flowers and card to my wife. Instead, I went back to my car to get my new digital camera that worked well in low light. I put the flowers and card back in the car and later discarded the flowers. When I went back inside, they were taking a break. I heard him ask if I suspected anything. Bev assured him that I didn't have a clue and talked about how she would have everything ready for me by the weekend. She believed I was too focused on my job to notice anything wrong. Listening to their conversation made me feel ill. I wanted evidence, so I quietly made my way down the hall. The bedroom door was open and a light was on. I stood silently in the doorway and they didn't appear to notice me. I recorded about 30 minutes of their conversation and the sounds coming from the room. I felt terrible doing this, struggling to manage my discomfort. I waited for them to begin talking again before quietly leaving the house. At first, I was upset. Then that emotion shifted to anger. I felt like I had lost my family, and a cold rage took root inside me. I found a modest motel not too far from my work and tried to sleep, but I tossed and turned all night, contemplating different ways to handle the situation. I didn't plan to hurt anyone, even though I felt the temptation. I had his license plate number, making it easy to gather information about him. Bev was a different story. I wanted to ensure she didn't have much left, aside from maybe her retirement savings that I had contributed to over the years. She had a job that paid just enough for her car and some nice things. I covered everything else from my business, which provided for food, a comfortable home, and all the extras she wanted but couldn't afford on her own. Tomorrow morning, that support would come to an end. I woke up early and made a few calls, the last one to my lawyer. "Glenn, I know you usually work on business matters. Can you suggest a good divorce lawyer?" "Jack, are you and Bev having issues?" "Let's just say she has found someone else to spend time with while I work hard for the business." "I'm sorry to hear that, Jack. The best one I know is Sally Fields." "Is she local?" "Not sure if she's related to the actress, but she's tough, if you catch my drift." "Can I use you as a reference?" "Of course. Here's her number. If she's not in the office, it will go to her cell." "Jack, I really didn't expect this. I thought you two were great together." He shared her number and a way to reach her directly. "Thanks, Glenn. So did I. I plan to remove her from the company and take away her signatory powers. That actually happened yesterday, but she doesn't know that yet." "All right, Jack. I'll get my team on it immediately. Call me when you're ready." "Will do, Glenn. Probably next week, Wednesday or Thursday. I'll reach out." I took a shower, got ready, and left the motel. It felt like a waste of money, but I wasn't going to sleep in my car, even though I hadn't rested much anyway. I arrived at my store just after my office manager, Joyce, opened up. She managed everything in the office and worked with customers at the front. I had a young woman helping at the counter and 3 technicians working in the back. I usually assisted when I was in the store, but for big clients, like the one I had just served, I preferred to handle things personally. They were paying for my skills, and I didn't want to send one of the techs without asking first. It also helped me stay in touch with them. Joyce saw me walking up and waited. "Jack, what are you doing here?" "I thought you wouldn't be back until Saturday." "Yeah, that was the plan, but I finished early and drove home last night." "Was Bev surprised? Or did you tell anyone you were coming back yesterday?" "She will be surprised. Let's get some coffee and go to your office. I'll share what happened." "Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good." "Trust me, it's not. Please let the staff know that if anyone asks for me, I'm not here. No one, especially Bev or her team. I'll let them know, and I'll remind them to be careful. Otherwise, they might face your displeasure." "Thanks, Joyce. Let's grab coffee and then close your door." We got our drinks, and she talked to the techs in the back, explaining that I wasn't in and wouldn't be back until Saturday. She'd fill in Lisa, the front desk girl, when she arrived. Lisa usually came in later, since she needed to drop her daughter off at daycare. It was the only special arrangement she had in her years of working here. Joyce was my right hand. She knew more about daily operations than I did. She came in looking for work just when I was starting to feel overwhelmed. She wasn't flashy, a bit heavier with simple features like what you might think of when someone mentions a kind school teacher. That said, she was much more than that. She understood office work well, could handle all the accounting, and was great with people. Her best quality was her personality. If you looked at her first, you might not notice her much, but if you heard her voice before seeing her, you would definitely want to know her. I hired her the same day she interviewed because no other candidates matched what I needed. It turned out that her husband had left her the day after their youngest daughter got married. That was a few months before she came to see me. He had been planning it for a while and took almost everything, leaving her with just a few clothes and her retirement savings. It seemed like he had emptied all their accounts. The house was heavily mortgaged, and she could no longer afford the payments. She decided to return the keys to the bank and signed a release. He left for who knows where with someone much younger. She might not have been as conventionally attractive, but I doubt she was nicer or smarter. But then again, I'm a bit biased. Joyce had become essential to the team since I hired her over 4 years ago. Not long after I hired her, her oldest daughter, Gloria, came to speak with me. Joyce had taken her husband's actions very hard. She struggled with her self-esteem when she came for the job interview. Her daughter wanted to ensure that I wasn't hiring her out of pity. I assured Gloria that I hired her based on her abilities alone and that she was actually overqualified for the position I had available. Gloria looked unsure and checked on me from time to time, just like her youngest daughter, Jen. They slowly warmed up to me when they saw I meant well. After I shared my story with Joyce, she sat at her desk fighting back tears. Why does this always happen to good people, the ones who don't deserve it? I had no answer for her. She understood what I was dealing with. I spent time in the store, called the divorce lawyer who could see me first thing, and kept to myself until after 9 to make sure Bev would be at work. I reached out to a friend who owns a locksmith business and shared what I needed. He said he would meet me at my house around noon. Then I went to a store that sells moving supplies like boxes and tape. I picked up a few boxes in different sizes, hoping they would be enough, along with packing tape. Next, I went to a local motor vehicle registration office and mentioned I was considering buying a car and gave them the plate number. The clerk returned in about 10 minutes with a printout of the car's history, including the current and past owners and their addresses. It was the best $25 I ever spent. Then, I visited a florist I hadn't been to before and explained what I wanted. The manager looked skeptical, but after I offered an extra $50 to have my order ready by 3 hours, she agreed. I left half the payment as a promise that I would return. The florist was close to the building where Sally Fields had her office, so I walked over and took the elevator to the top floor. It wasn't what I had expected. The elevator opened directly into the reception area. To the right was a small sitting area, and the hallway to the offices started just left of the receptionist's desk. Several secretaries were busy at work. "Good morning. I'm Jack Ames, here to see Sally Fields." She checked her computer and said, "Yes, of course, Mr. Ames. Ms. Fields will be with you shortly. Would you like some coffee?" "Thank you, I'd love some." She disappeared into the back and returned with a mug featuring the law firm's logo. I settled in to wait for Sally Fields. She was not at all what I had imagined. She was tall, a bit taller than my 5'11", and nicely built. Her brown hair was curled and reached her shoulders. While she may not fit the traditional idea of beauty, she had a strong presence. For the first time since I got home last night, I felt I might finally see a glimmer of hope. "Mr. Ames, I'm Sally Fields. I need to thank Glenn for referring you." "Ms. Fields, it's a pleasure to meet you. Please call me Jack. That's what everyone else does." "Okay, Jack, it is. Let's get started. Please bring your coffee." I followed her into a spacious, well-decorated office. One wall was filled with bookshelves stacked with many legal reference books. The wall on the right of her desk had big windows that looked out over the city center. In the distance, you could see the mountains where I used to go camping. "Jack, I need you to tell me exactly what's happening and if you have any proof of wrongdoing." I handed her my camera and told her to just press the video button and then select Playback Latest. "I think this will help clear things up for you." I leaned back in my chair while she watched some of the video. "How long is this?" "It's about 35 minutes total, but the first part is just audio. I was just down the hall from the bedroom when I recorded that. The other part was from the spare bedroom across the hall. They had no idea I was there." Okay, Jack. What do you really want? Sally, I have worked hard for over 30 years to build my business. I think it's quite successful now. It seems she only sees me as a source of financial support. She even says that. We haven't been close in the last 2 years. Now I understand why she hasn't been interested. That is over. I want her out of my life completely. Do you have a prenup or postnup? Yes, her dad made me sign a prenup. He thought I was after her money. He passed away a couple of years ago without leaving her anything. He spent what he had on habits that caused him to lose everything. Do you have the document with you? Can I use your phone? I'll ask Glenn to send you a copy. I'll have him send copies of all the business records, too. You might need those later. Good idea. I probably will. Thank you. Now, about your business. Are you the sole owner? It's actually an LLC. I incorporated a few years ago when things got really busy. It was better for me in terms of liability and insurance. I'm the owner and president. Bev, my wife, was just a director. She has no other stake in the business and always wanted it that way. Okay, I understand. What I need you to do is stay calm. I know you're upset, but don't act out in a way that could give her or her lawyer any advantage. I got past being upset last night. Now I'm angrier than I've ever been. She and her boyfriend will regret messing with me. I shared my plans for the morning. She advised me to visit my bank right away to ensure Bev can't sign for anything except her own accounts. If I gave Sally the information, she might have her team change account numbers for any automatic payments. She also suggested that I contact my insurance companies, both personal and business, and make the necessary arrangements. Feeling that I was in good hands, I left Sally and walked to the bank. My account manager was busy, but the branch manager would meet with me right away. When I entered, I learned that the manager I remembered had retired. A younger woman at the desk stood up to greet me and shook my hand. I told her what was happening and what I needed done. I assured her that my lawyer would send the right forms to remove Bev from the company. Diane, the manager, had one of her staff bring all the forms I needed to sign, along with the company records. An hour later, I left with Bev removed from all the business accounts, including the company credit card, which I canceled. A new credit card would be ready for me to pick up later. The only accounts she could access were her savings, RRSP, and the checking account from which I had taken my name off. I closed all our joint accounts and opened the necessary ones for myself. I called Glenn at his office, and he spoke to Diane, assuring her that everything was fine and that his staff were working on it. Mr. Ames, I'm really sorry for all this. I dislike seeing this happen to anyone, especially a good customer. I hope this won't change our business relationship. Thank you, Diane. You've been very helpful. I appreciate you and your staff. My wife might come in and cause some trouble when she finds out, but I don't expect our business relationship to change much. Thank you, Mr. Ames. Good luck. I left the bank and went home, stopping to grab a sandwich and drink from a small store nearby. The locksmith was parked outside, waiting for me. I explained what I needed and where everything was, leaving him to do his work. My friend wanted to come himself, but had sent one of his best technicians instead. While the locksmith worked, I taped up all the boxes I had bought and started putting all of Bev's clothes and personal items inside. Her clothes alone filled 4 large boxes. I could have used more, but I didn't bother folding them neatly. I just stuffed them in until I could barely seal the boxes. I didn't box the TV from the bedroom. I had paid for it, but didn't want it. Bev had said she needed it to help her rest when I was away, but I didn't believe that. I placed it on top of one of the boxes in the yard. By the time I finished, there were 4 large boxes and 4 smaller ones sitting on the lawn, along with her TV, stereo, and all our CDs. She could take them. She had bought them, but I never heard them played. Just more things she felt she needed. Well, now they were hers. The locksmith finished his job just as I was finishing with the boxes. Did you take care of the garage, too? I wanted to make sure that the old key or opener wouldn't work anymore. Don't worry, Mr. Ames, it's all sorted out. The boss will send the bill to your company. He gave me 2 new remotes. These have different codes, one for each door. There are some extra ones on the counter inside. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And please tell him thanks for the good service. I will, Mr. Ames. Take care. After that, the locksmith drove away, leaving me by the doorway of my house, looking at the items scattered on the lawn. I grabbed my camera from the car and took several pictures. Then I went to my home office and printed them out. Sally had called, asking for a copy of the video I recorded. I burned a couple of DVDs to drop off at her office, along with some extras for future use. The video had the date and time on it, so no one could say it was changed. I left the house and made sure everything was locked tight. Unless someone broke a window, Bev or anyone else couldn't get in. I headed to the florist who had finished preparing my order. I paid her the agreed amount plus a little extra. I then asked if she knew anyone who could make casual deliveries, not a delivery service. She gave me the name of a young guy who often hung out at the mall. With her description, I found him easily. Are you Jerry? I asked. Who wants to know? The kid seemed a bit bold. The lady at the flower shop said you do deliveries for her sometimes. Is that true? Yeah, so what? I need you to deliver these and this card. There's $50 for you. I don't do anything illegal. Is this for real? All you need to do is go to this office and give these to Mrs. Bev Ames. You don't have to do anything else. Just make sure to do it at 4:00 p.m. today. No earlier and no later. Can you do that? For $50, I'm your guy. Just give me the address. I handed him a piece of paper with the address of Bev's office on it. I don't have to say anything? Just that you have a delivery for Bev Ames and it needs to be personally delivered to her. They will make sure she comes to get it. She works in that office, behind the counter. Okay. Are you Mr. Ames? You don't know who sent it. You're just the delivery person, right? You got it, Mr. $50. No problem. It's a short walk from here. I'll have it there by 4:00. Great. The flower lady said you wouldn't fail me. He smiled, pocketed the $50, and headed down the street toward her office. Chapter 2. To say that the delivery stirred things up would be an understatement. True to his word, Jerry arrived at Bev's office at exactly 4 hours. The receptionist called her to the front desk, just like I thought she would. Bev took the 15 black flowers and vase back to her desk before opening the card I had meant to deliver last night. I had made a few changes to it. The front of the card was all decorated with flowers and said, Happy Anniversary. I chose to ignore that. Inside, there was a big floral number 30. I crossed it out with a black marker and replaced it with a big red 0. The card had photos of all the things outside on the lawn. I didn't feel the need to sign it. She would know who sent it. Bev became very upset, or so I heard later. I knew she called my phone at least 20 times. I just deleted the messages without listening to them. She probably called my office too, but as I had asked, they thought I wouldn't be back until tomorrow. Joyce left a message saying Bev was emotional and almost couldn't talk. She also advised me to stay quiet, and the staff would cover for me. I called Joyce back and asked her to convey my message. I would be at home and provided her with a number for another phone I had. I parked my car in the garage where Bev used to keep hers and made sure the door was locked. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a drink, and headed to my home office. I unpacked a few boxes with web cameras and set them up. One was facing the front door, and the other overlooked the deck and backyard. Both could stream video and worked well in low light. Around 4:45, I saw Bev pull into the driveway through the webcam. I watched her throw the garage door opener onto the floor when it wouldn't work. She got out and walked to the garage. I couldn't see her anymore as she tried to open it with her key. Then she went to the front door and tried that key too. Of course, it didn't work. She repeated this at the back and in the basement. Returning to the front, she rang the doorbell. I stayed quiet. She knocked on the door, but still I didn't answer. Finally, she sat down on the steps and started to cry. After a few minutes, I called her phone. As you can see, this is no longer your home. You can ask John or anyone else to come and get your things. They might have a place for you to stay. Please refrain from contacting me again except through my lawyer, Sally Fields. Any further contact will lead me to seek a restraining order. But Jack, she started. I ended the call, knowing it would show as an unknown number, preventing her from calling me back. I was serious about wanting no more contact with her. I saw her start to punch a number into her phone, but I stopped watching the camera. I just didn't care anymore. If her things stayed there, that was fine with me. A couple of hours later, I looked outside, and everything was gone from the lawn. I didn't know or care who took it or where it went. I had unplugged the house phone earlier, but I plugged it back in and set it to go straight to the answering machine without ringing. I expected things to get difficult when she told the kids what happened. They thought highly of their mother, and I often felt like I was just a background figure. Maybe that was partly my fault. I worked hard on my business and wasn't always around for them. I would return their calls whenever I could, usually the next day. If I asked Sally, she would be honest with them about the situation. I cared for my kids, but I didn't want them to take advantage of me. That night, I went to bed early in the spare room and slept well. The past few days had been really tough. The next morning, I made coffee and checked my messages. I had 3 from my daughter and 2 from my son. The last one came in at 2 a.m. I had received over 30 from Bev, but I deleted them. I thought about calling my kids, but decided to wait for later. I had some things to take care of first. I went to a postal store and bought a couple of padded envelopes. I addressed them and wrote a note for each one to include inside. I had told Sally my plan, and she said it was legal, though not very kind. But I held off on mailing them. Next, I visited an internet cafe, got a coffee, and paid for an hour on a computer. I searched for John K. Burns, Bev's partner, and found out as much as I could about him. He worked for a company located in the same building as Bev. From his LinkedIn profile, he looked like a regular office worker, not very successful. I checked more about the company, and it turned out the owners were very religious and emphasized ethics when hiring. I wondered how they would react to my video showing one of their employees being unfaithful. I decided to keep that information for later, unless he tried to do something unexpected. When I got home, I noticed Bev's car in the driveway. I chose not to stop and drove downtown instead. I could wait her out. Most of what I needed to do could happen at my store. I knew I would eventually have to confront her, but I preferred it to be with her lawyer sitting across from my lawyer and me. A few hours later, when I returned, her car was gone, but there was a note on the door. I crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash without reading it. My kids had called again. I called my son first. "Jamie, I know you've been trying to reach me. Do you know why? Or did your mother tell you?" No, Dad. What's happening? Mom is really upset. She was crying so much, I could barely understand her. Did you really put her things out like she said? Well, you could ask her for details, but I found out she was unfaithful. I have something that proves it. She can try to explain it however she wants, but betrayal is still betrayal. What do you mean you have proof? I came home early from a job. Instead of getting home like I planned, I arrived Thursday night. Let's just say she and her boyfriend didn't expect me. I recorded them for about 30 minutes before I left. Not much of a celebration. Dad, are you sure? Mom thought the world of you. She would never betray you. I'm sure. The evidence shows otherwise. What she valued was the money I provided for her comforts. Next time she calls, ask her if the phrase "stupid meal ticket" means anything to her. I'd like to know her answer. Jamie, I know I haven't been the best dad and missed a lot while you were growing up. But believe me, son, I have never lied to you. No matter what happens, remember that I love you and your sister. I need to call Colleen now. Dad, I don't know what to say. I'll ask her that next time. She calls often, so it shouldn't be long. I know you love us. Bye for now. I hung up and called my daughter. Colleen, I guess you know now. Know what, Dad? That Mom is upset? That you locked her out? That you left her things outside? Yeah, I know that. But I don't know why. Well, there is a reason. I caught your mother being unfaithful to me. As I told Jamie, no matter how she explains it, betrayal is betrayal. Mom would never do that. I have 30 minutes of video evidence that suggests otherwise. If you want to see it, I can show you, but I wouldn't recommend it. What video? I came home early from my last trip and caught her with someone she shouldn't have been with. It's clear on the recording. I can't believe this. Mom would never. Next time she calls, ask her 2 questions. Does the name John K. Burns mean anything to her, and what does stupid meal ticket mean? If she's honest, she'll answer. If not, I can show you the video, though I would advise against it. Wow, Dad, this is a lot to take in. It's hard for me to believe. Well, for better or worse, you never really trusted what I said. But remember, no matter what happens, I love you both. I have to go now. Call me after you talk to your mother. She sounded deflated when she replied, Okay, Dad. Bye for now. I ended the call and noticed Joyce had left a message on my other phone. I would call her later. I went to the spare room and lay down for a nap. From what I've heard, the only ones who think I'm right are my staff, my lawyer, and my banker. It is what it is. I didn't expect much more, especially from my kids. This could be a real lesson for them. I had to be honest about the situation. I woke up to someone knocking hard on the front door. Instead of opening it, I checked the webcam to see who it was. It was Burns, with my soon-to-be ex-wife standing behind him. I wasn't interested in what they had to say. All his knocking would get him was a sore hand. 10 minutes later, they were gone. I left soon after to grab something to eat. I wanted to try some new places and avoid those where I was recognized, except for the coffee shop across from my store. The elderly couple who owned it considered me like a son, so I would be welcome there. I drove for a while without a clear destination. I wasn't very hungry, but decided to stop at a pub for a bite. I had heard about this place, but had never been since it was far from home. It was surprisingly quiet for a Saturday night. I ordered a beer and a clubhouse sandwich, which was their special. The food was decent and not too expensive. I casually watched the TVs showing various sports. BC was losing a football game, a golfer made a hole-in-one and won a car, and some wrestlers were on another screen. Just a typical Saturday night scene. After finishing my beer and sandwich, I left the pub. With no other plans, I found myself back home. My daughter's car was in the driveway and she was waiting on the steps. I had no idea how long she had been there. Colleen, Dad, I've been waiting for you. My keys don't work. I'm not surprised. I changed all the locks. I'll give you and Jamie your keys after everything is settled, if you still want them. Of course I want them. Why not now? Think it through. You'll understand. Now, why are you here instead of home with David? David was her husband. They didn't have kids yet, but were trying. I need to talk about Mom. She wants me to convince you to understand. And she thinks that will work? I doubt it. Come in, I'll make some coffee unless you want something stronger. She followed me inside. I made sure to lock the door behind her. You really don't want her here, do you? Not at all. She can stay with her boyfriend. She says you're mistaken. She doesn't have a boyfriend. She believes you're just imagining things. I could see Colleen was trying to keep calm. Well, Next time you talk to her, tell her to have her lawyer call mine. Sally has a copy of everything and some extras, too. I'm sure she'll share one with her lawyer. I don't know if your mother has one, but if she doesn't, she should. Is there really no way to fix this? Mom hopes there is a way for you to get through this. Oh, so now she acknowledges it's more than something I imagined. Dad, when I talked to her about what you said on the phone, she became very upset. So yes, I guess you could say she admits there is a problem. Well, it's her problem, not just a problem. I think you're being too harsh on her. Nobody's perfect, you know. Colleen always defended her mother, no matter what happened. I never claimed to be perfect, but I never betrayed her, not once since I met her. It's too bad she can't say the same. I was working hard to build a business to provide for us. If I wasn't working, I was here. Can she say that? I was starting to feel really frustrated. Maybe I should show you the evidence. Then, you might understand better. Until then, let's not talk about it again. As long as you stand by her, I don't want to hear your thoughts. She might take everything from you, you know. I don't think so. Her dad made us sign a prenup before we got married. I hated that back then, but now I'm thankful. She never mentioned that. Tell her to have her lawyer ask Sally for a copy. Glenn, my regular lawyer, has the original. Anything else? No, Dad. Nothing. I'm having trouble believing all of this. She opened the door and walked slowly back to her car, looking down as if lost in thought. Welcome to my life. Say hi to David. Colleen drove away, probably heading back home. I didn't know or care where Bev was. I woke up Sunday to a heavy rain. Well, at least it would keep Burns and Bev away from the house. Anyone outside would get soaked quickly. I stood in my living room, sipping my first coffee of the day, watching the water flow down the street into the drain. Just like my marriage. I sighed and headed downstairs to my home office. I would work from home today. I had one computer connected to my work server to catch up on what I missed last week. There was not much for me to do. Joyce had taken care of most things, leaving only a few items for me to handle. An hour later, I logged onto my home computer, the one not connected to the store. I had checked my inbox daily while away. It was full again. Most emails I deleted without reading. I usually skipped forwarded jokes, cute pictures, and cartoons. I noticed one email claiming I could get several $1 million from Nigeria. I scanned through everything before deleting the unread ones. There were several emails, all dated yesterday, from someone named Kenny B. I didn't know who that was, but seeing the subject lines gave me a clue. Kenny B was John K. Burns. He wanted me to forgive my wife and take her back. He said it wasn't serious, she was just feeling lonely, and things got out of hand. I didn't respond to the messages, but I moved them into a special folder I had set up for anything from him or Bev. I looked up alienation of affection online and made a note to ask Sally about it next time we chatted. Meanwhile, I needed to prepare a package for Mrs. Burns and for Mr. Burns's workplace. On a hunch, I went to the filing cabinet and went through the old papers. I found it a copy of Bev's employment contract. It had a morals clause. I guessed she probably didn't remember it and it could be useful. Maybe I would prepare a package for her workplace too. It was time to wrap things up. I changed the passwords on all the computers in the house and turned them off. Today would be a day to relax in front of the TV. My mood matched the gloomy weather outside. The answering machine showed 4 new messages, 1 each from Colleen and Jamie, and 2 from Bev. I deleted Bev's messages without listening. Colleen wanted to apologize for last night, and Jamie said he would call back after talking to his mother. Perhaps he was starting to understand things better, I thought. I turned on the TV, hoping to find something to distract myself. No luck. I turned it off and grabbed my Kobo e-reader. I had several books on it I hadn't read yet. Soon I was immersed in stories of history and espionage, which I enjoyed when I had the time. Chapter 3. On Monday morning, I called a junk removal company. I told them I would have the items they needed to take away out in the driveway and that they could bill my office. They assured me they would pick it up sometime today. I moved all the bedroom furniture except for the lamps out to the driveway. I didn't want any of it, especially the bed, but I liked the lamps. We had them for a long time, and I planned to look for new lampshades later. I headed to work, arriving last. I gathered the staff and explained what was happening. I made it clear that Bev was not to contact me. Anything she had to say should go through my lawyer. No exceptions. Joyce promised to enforce this just in case there was any confusion. The team understood. I told Lisa and Joyce that if Bev came into the store, they should politely ask her to leave. If she refused, they could call the police for assistance. She was no longer allowed behind the counter. Everyone understood the situation, offered their sympathies, and returned to their tasks. From the outside, it looked like business as usual. Later that morning, I went down the street to a furniture store we worked with. I told the sales representative I wasn't in the mood for haggling. I wanted a full bedroom set, a queen-size bed with a pillow-top mattress, and I needed it delivered that night. She assured me it could be arranged, though the delivery at that time would cost more. I signed the order and handed her a check. My boss gave the green light. We had done quite a bit of business there. For lunch, I went to my favorite coffee shop across the street. I could tell the news had spread. Olga fussed over me like a caring friend. Slim, her husband, gave me a supportive pat on the back and said they would be there for me. This really meant a lot. After lunch, I returned to the store. Lisa handed me a stack of messages, saying all but one were from Bev. I kept the one I needed and tossed the others. This message was from Sally, asking if the reasons were about infidelity and if I wanted to name someone else involved. I answered yes to both. I called her back, but she was in a meeting, so I spoke to her assistant. I confirmed that yes, the reasons were about infidelity, and yes, there was someone else involved. I gave the assistant the details and asked her to have Sally call me about alienation of affection. Maybe discussing a potential lawsuit would make someone pay attention, or at least provoke a reaction. I was starting to think about moving forward sooner rather than later. I called Glenn and set up a meeting for later that week. Most things were ready. I just needed to give him the dates for the company directors meeting. I told him to reference last Thursday. That wasn't entirely accurate, but it was the last time I saw Bev in person. He caught the irony but didn't comment. I also asked him to make sure Sally and my bank got a copy of everything. He promised to do that right away. There was a disturbance in the front of the store. I instantly knew what was happening. Bev was trying to get into my office, and Joyce and Lisa were trying to hold her back. I called for the techs to come help. While I looked through the one-way glass, I saw Bev push past Joyce. Just as I picked up the phone to call for help, Joyce had already dialed the police. They arrived quickly and got everything calmed down, leading Bev out of the store. They said they would return later for witness statements. Joyce considered pressing charges. She had witnesses, and one of the techs had taken a few pictures documenting the event. It was clear Bev was out of control. It felt like a reckoning was just beginning. I called Glenn and asked him to arrange a restraining order to keep Bev and Burns at least 100 meters away from the store and 300 meters from my home and property. I explained what happened, and he was glad to speed things up. None of us would have to go to court for that. However, if there was a trial regarding the incident, we might need to appear. I doubted it would go that far since it was just a minor matter and no one was really hurt. Just the fact that she might be charged could help calm her down. On Wednesday, I went to Glenn's office and signed all the corporate documents. I had him make copies for me. Sally and the bank had already received theirs. I asked him about the prenup. He told me it was straightforward. Bev would leave our marriage with what she had brought into it, plus a bit more since I had been contributing to her retirement savings. She also had her car that she was making payments on, which I didn't need anymore. She couldn't claim the business or our house because her name wasn't on the ownership papers. She might try since we had been married for a long time, but I had evidence that would make it hard for her. Sally called my phone just as I left Glenn's office. The divorce papers were ready to be delivered. Did I know where Bev was? I hadn't thought about that, so I said she could check her office to see if Bev was there. They could give the papers to her there or tell her where to find them. I then asked Sally about the alienation of affection claim. She advised against it since the individual was already listed in the divorce. After everything was settled would be a better time for that. I told her I didn't expect much from it, but I wanted Burns to understand how upset I was. My usual calm attitude felt gone. Would it come back? I wasn't sure. Only time would tell. I focused on my work, only going home to change and get a few hours of sleep. I didn't feel very hungry, but I managed to eat a little during the day. When customers called for help, I let them know I couldn't meet them, but could send one of the senior technicians instead. Most agreed that the technician could help them. The only customer I personally visited was one of my first business clients, who had become a good friend over the years. He was understanding when I shared what had happened with Bev and planned to talk to his wife. She and Bev had become close and worked on some community projects together. I wondered if their friendship would survive this situation. 3 weeks after discovering Bev with her boyfriend, Sally called to tell me they had finally served the divorce papers to her. They couldn't find a home address, so they waited until she returned to work. Bev had called Sally to say she wouldn't sign the papers and would contest the divorce. Sally told her to hire her own lawyer since she was representing me. Any further talks would be with Bev's lawyer after he had discussed everything with her. I knew she would put up a fight. Who wouldn't? She was facing financial difficulties and might struggle to make ends meet on her own salary. The reality of life was weighing down on her. I refused to pay any support until she could demonstrate a genuine need for it. Both Sally and I agreed that any support payments would likely cease once the divorce was finalized. The video evidence was quite compelling. I was surprised when Bev pleaded not guilty to the assault charge and the case would go to trial. I couldn't believe her lawyer allowed her to take that route. It turned out he had advised against it, but she chose not to heed his advice. Instead of viewing her actions as a minor misstep, she wanted a trial to justify herself. As the judge remarked, that was her decision. The trial was set for a few months later, and all my colleagues were to be called as witnesses. They wanted to include me, too, but I was removed from the list since I wasn't present at the incident. That was accurate, even though I observed it unfold through the one-way glass in my office. Still, there were many other witnesses. Meanwhile, the divorce processed through the legal system. Bev, through her lawyer, introduced numerous obstacles, even challenging the authenticity of the video evidence. The judge, a woman, opted to delay her decision until she had viewed it. She did not appear pleased upon returning to the courtroom a few hours later. The video was concerning, but she was particularly unsettled by the audio. The divorce proceedings continued. Bev wanted to explore joint counseling to see if we could reconcile. I was hesitant, but she prevailed in this instance. She agreed to attend 2 sessions on her own, followed by 3 joint sessions. I made it clear that I would be bringing my own male counselor to the joint sessions, and if that posed an issue, I would withdraw from participation. She and her counselor weren't thrilled, but they eventually acquiesced. At the start of the first joint session, I entered the office where Bev and her counselor, Samantha Adams, awaited. We exchanged polite introductions. She and my counselor, Harry Simpson, were already acquainted, as their professional circles were small. Ms. Adams invited me to sit on the sofa next to Bev, but I opted for a chair on the opposite side. Harry joined me. "Thank you for coming, Jack. We hope this will help resolve the situation," Samantha began. I responded, "My name is Mr. Ames, to you. Harry can call me Jack since I am his client, but I am not yours. Also, if at any point Mrs. Ames says anything that isn't true, I will leave. I can't accept dishonesty. Do we understand each other?" If they wanted attitude, I was more than willing to provide it. To her credit, Samantha quickly regained her composure. "As you wish, Mr. Ames. I've already heard from your wife, so now I would like to know your side of the story. Please tell me what happened." "I'm not sure how much you already know. Do you want to hear everything or just the main points? Have you seen the video?" I asked, suspecting that Bev had made her story sound much worse than it actually was. "No, I haven't seen the video." "Well, it would have saved us a lot of time if you had. A video speaks volumes," I replied. She nodded. "So, you want to hear all the details?" "Yes, please. I need you to share your side of the story." "Sure," I said. Over the next half hour, I talked about everything that happened that week, starting when I drove to the factory and ending when I recorded the video and left the house. Bev tried to interrupt a few times, but I made it clear that if she did, I would leave, and the session would be over. She stayed on the sofa, quietly crying as I spoke. "So, Jack," she began. I gave her a hard look. "I'm sorry, Mr. Ames. What I meant to say is that you had never seen any signs of her being unfaithful before this." "No. I was too busy with my job and feeling used," I replied bitterly. "She was really good at hiding her tracks. The only thing I know is that it went on for a long time since he felt so at home, in my bed." I said the last part with anger. "So you don't know how long it went on? Does it matter? Cheating is cheating. It doesn't matter if it was once or many times. It feels the same to me." Bev started to speak again. "Jack, I just want to—" "Please, be quiet, Bev. You have nothing to say that I want to hear. If you're trying to say you're sorry, it's only because you're losing support. Sorry you got caught, not sorry for what you did. Save your excuses for someone else." I didn't raise my voice, but it was intense. She flinched and settled back into the sofa. Her tears kept falling. The rest of the session went similarly. When the hour was over, Harry and I left. "Ms. Adams, if the other sessions will be like this, they will be a waste of time for both of us." "That may be true, Mr. Ames, but the court ordered 3 joint sessions, and we will hold you to that." "Fine by me," I said as we walked out of her office. Harry turned to me as we left the building. "Jack, do you want me to keep coming with you? You handled it pretty well on your own. I don't really need you, but I want you there. She won't be able to pull any tricks if you're in the room. Let's just say you're the presence that's hard to ignore." "Okay, Jack, I'll stay in touch," he said as we parted ways. I went to my car and drove home. I decided to relax for the evening, have some dinner, and enjoy a nice bottle of wine. I hoped for an early night in my comfortable new bed. But, as the saying goes, plans can change. I had just settled in front of the TV when there was a loud knock at the front door. Instead of going down to the office to check the webcam, I looked through the peephole. It was Burns. Didn't he know there was a restraining order against him? I didn't answer the door. Instead, I picked up my phone and called 911. I told the dispatcher that someone with a restraining order was banging loudly on my front door. I had no intention of talking to him and definitely did not want to confront him. She informed me that the police were on the way. He just said it more smoothly than I could. At that moment, any hope Bev might have had was lost. For me, it was now about figuring out the settlement. The next week, we returned to court, and the judge allowed the divorce to move forward. Our lawyers would handle the negotiations. I had heard that Sally was tough. Glenn had mentioned she didn't back down easily. She quickly gave me a reassuring hug as we left the courtroom and promised to keep me updated. In about 6 months, I would be single again. We eventually agreed that she would keep her car and savings. I would pay off the loan for her car, but would keep all the furniture in the house. Bev was very upset when I told her I had gotten rid of the bedroom furniture she had chosen. If the house sold within 5 years, she would receive half of the profits. Since I had already packed and removed anything that might be seen as hers that first night, she didn't have much left. She made choices that led us here. Sometimes, that's just how it goes. After we reached the divorce settlement, I contacted Sally to move forward with the lawsuit against Burns for alienation of affection. I didn't expect much from it. I also sent Mrs. Burns a copy of the video and the petition for divorce which listed her husband. I included a note offering to talk about it if she wanted, along with my new phone number. I sent another copy to Burns's employer with a note explaining the situation. I never heard back from them. About 2 weeks later, while I was working in the yard, an older Chev Impala pulled up and a lovely woman stepped out. She opened the back doors and 2 children got out of the car. "Mr. Ames? I'm Elizabeth Burns. Can we talk?" "Of course. I didn't expect to see you here. Would you and the kids like something to drink? We can go to the patio in the back. The yard is safe so the kids won't wander off." I opened the door, waiting for them to come inside. She paused for a moment. I wasn't sure why she was here. I had an idea, but I wasn't certain what she hoped to achieve by visiting me. "That would be nice. Maybe some iced tea for me and ice water for the kids." "Sure, please follow me." I guided her through the house to the patio where she could choose her own chair. I prepared 2 iced teas and 2 waters and sat down with her. "Okay, Mrs. Burns, can I ask why you're here? I know the reason, but I'm curious about what you expect from me." I leaned back and took a sip of my iced tea. "It's Elizabeth, or Liz if you'd like. I came to see the man who helped me with my soon-to-be ex-husband. I want to thank him sincerely." She smiled, which surprised me. "You mean?" "Yes. We're getting divorced. By the time I'm done with him, he won't have anything left. I suspected he was being unfaithful for years. You're the only one who had the courage to stand up to him." She laughed lightly and took a sip of her drink. The kids were playing happily on the grass. "Do you know who Sally Fields is?" "Yes. She's the lawyer handling my divorce." "Well, she's handling mine, too. John K. Burns is going to face the consequences, and I have you to thank. The video you sent was the final piece I needed. Before that, he tried to deny everything, saying it was just a brief encounter or that he was misled. I didn't believe him, but I had no proof. The video changed everything. I wanted to thank you in person for your help. I'm glad it worked out. It's always the innocent spouse and kids who suffer in these situations, even though they've done nothing wrong. I wanted you to see what kind of person you were dealing with. I'm happy some good came from this." I felt relieved she wasn't upset with me. "So, tell me, is your ex-wife going to stay with him?" She seemed more at ease now that she had shared her reason for coming. "I honestly have no idea, and I don't really care," I replied. "As far as I'm concerned, they made their choice and can deal with the consequences together or apart. It doesn't matter to me. Truthfully, if my ex had taken full responsibility for her actions, I might have considered supporting her. But her refusal to accept her mistakes made that impossible. She and Burns were a match, but I doubted it would last." She laughed, and I found I liked the sound. However, she quickly dashed my hopes. "We didn't own our home. We just rented. I've already moved out and taken everything I wanted. The kids and I are relocating to Victoria where my parents live. I already have a job waiting for me. I just wanted to thank you before we leave. She finished her iced tea. Well, I wish you the best of luck in the future. I hope everything works out for you. For you and the kids, I said. I think we'll be okay. Even better now that he's gone. From what I've heard, Sally can be very strong. He'll get what he deserves. Don't worry. She's really good at what she does. I don't think she likes people who cheat. We should be going. Yes, I think so too. Thanks for the iced tea, Jack. Thank you for everything. You helped more than you know. She gathered the kids, and I helped them out to the car. Goodbye, and thanks again for everything. Liz, you're welcome. If you need anything else, you know where I live and you have my number. She shook my hand, got into her car, and drove off to start her new life. I waved goodbye and went back to my yard work, feeling somewhat relieved about how everything went. I finished my tasks for the day and put everything away. I made sure the house was locked up, changed into some shorts, grabbed a cold drink from the fridge, and headed to relax on the back patio. I was dozing in the sun, enjoying the warmth of the late afternoon, when I heard Joyce before I saw her coming through the gate. "Don't you answer your door," she called out. "Only if I hear it, and it's someone I want to talk to," I replied with a chuckle. She laughed and settled into a lounge chair. "Do you have something cold in the fridge?" "Of course. What do you want?" I gestured to my nearly empty drink. "I'd prefer some white wine if you have it. I've never really liked beer." "I have Chardonnay or Pinot Gris." "Which one do you want?" "Chardonnay, please." I went inside, poured a generous glass of Chardonnay, and grabbed myself another drink. "So what brings you here?" "Actually, I was visiting a friend nearby and thought I'd check if you were home. I just wanted to see how you were doing on your own." She took a sip of the Chardonnay. "Oh, this is nice. Remind me to find out what it is before I leave." "It's from a small winery called Silver Sage. I also enjoy their red wines." "How am I doing?" "Good. Living alone doesn't bother me, but I'm thinking of moving to a smaller place." I took a sip of my drink. "How long have you been on your own? You seem to manage well." "It's been over 5 years now, Jack. Yes, my life has settled into a comfortable routine. I like where I live, I enjoy my work, and I have many friends." "I'm glad to hear that. I'm still getting used to it." She laughed. "I didn't say happy. I think content is a better word. Yes, content." She leaned back in the chair and took another sip of her wine. "Okay, content. But why are you here, mother hen? I don't believe this just happened to be in the neighborhood story." I chuckled and she blushed a little. "Ugh, you weren't supposed to catch on," she giggled. "Actually, Jack, Lisa and the others are a bit worried about you. All you do is work and come back to this big house. We wish you would get out more and take a break from your job. Working those long hours isn't worth it. You deserve a holiday. You haven't taken one in a long time. You should take a couple of weeks and get away somewhere nice." "Joyce, I really appreciate it, I do. But I want to stay until the divorce is finalized. Once that's done, I can finally relax. I have thought about getting away, but not until things are settled. I know you and the others can handle things here for a couple of weeks. I'm not worried about that." "So how much longer do we have to wait?" "Let's see," I said, while looking at my watch. 50 days, 14 hours, 12 minutes, and 30 seconds. She started laughing. "Come on, be serious. How long until then?" "Just over 2 weeks. Actually 16 days from today. Then I'll be free. Or as free as anyone can be, I guess." "Okay. I'll hold you to that. In the meantime, why don't you come over for dinner one night?" "Joyce, I would love that. Just let me know when." How about tomorrow night? I want to try a stuffed chicken dish. Just bring yourself and some of that nice wine. I'll see if a couple of my friends want to join us. It's a plan. What time? Anytime after noon. I have no plans, just cooking. Great. I'll be there tomorrow afternoon. Mission accomplished, she said while finishing her wine. See you tomorrow, Jack. Don't forget the wine. I can let myself out. Thanks, Joyce. I look forward to it. See you tomorrow. I leaned back and dozed off. I had only had 2 beers, but I could feel their effects. I must be sleepier than I realized. Chapter 5. The next 2 weeks went by quickly. The dinner at Joyce's was enjoyable. Her friends had been together for a long time and were great to talk to. I was happy I brought 3 bottles of the Chardonnay she liked. Business was steady. I noticed more small businesses were eager to connect, so I started thinking about hiring a networking expert. My repair techs could handle some network issues, but it felt like the right time to get someone dedicated to that job. The day finally came when my divorce was finalized. You might expect a celebration, but I didn't feel that way at all. Instead, I felt deep sadness over what had happened and what could have been. Besides my kids, whom I only saw sometimes, I felt alone. As I told Joyce once, I was alone, but not lonely. I heard from different people that Bev and Burns were having trouble in their relationship. Without her support and with his wife leaving him, money was getting tight for them. It seemed his affection was conditional depending on who was paying. I wasn't sure if his job did anything about the video incident. It didn't matter to me anyway. Eventually, Joyce and Lisa persuaded me to take a break. I wasn't too keen on lounging on a beach, so I decided to rent a motorhome to explore Western Canada. The vehicle was big enough for my car, allowing me to set up in one place and go exploring without packing everything up each time. I had no plans or itinerary, so I hooked everything up and hit the road. I spent my first night at a small campground, just about 250 kilometers from home. Once I got settled in, I felt the stress start to fade away. Maybe it was the fresh mountain air. I bought some groceries from a nearby store and cooked a small steak for dinner, enjoying it with a glass of nice Merlot. Other RV travelers were quite friendly, stopping by to chat and share tips on places to visit and where to camp. I stayed at that campground for 2 nights, taking the time to unwind and enjoy the leisure. Doing nothing is challenging when you're used to working long hours. Believe me. On the 3rd morning of my vacation, I hit the road early. The motorhome was easy to manage, but climbing hills made my gas gauge drop visibly. I figured whatever I saved on lodging would likely go toward fuel. The nice part was that I could stop whenever and wherever I wanted. Fellow campers assured me that most campgrounds usually had space available even without reservations. Throughout my trip, I never had trouble finding a spot when I needed one. My 3rd night was spent in a place called a forestry campground, where there were no amenities like power or running water. I felt good about things. The small house I was driving was comfortable and had everything I needed. The sky was so clear and the stars were shining brightly. It felt like they were celebrating with me. I stayed outside late that night, just looking up at the beautiful sky. On the 4th night, I arrived at a larger campground. I recognized a few people I had met at other campgrounds. This seemed common in the RV lifestyle. A woman who was traveling alone asked if I knew anything about computers. I told her I had some skills and helped her with her small laptop. I explained that the biggest issue was that her laptop was quite old. She thanked me and mentioned she was considering buying a new one soon. Later, I checked in on my work online. Everything seemed to be going well without me. Joyce and Lisa were taking care of things. If there was an emergency, they could reach me. In my emails, I found several from Jamie. He mentioned talking to his mom, who regretted what had happened between us. He didn't say she wanted to reconnect. but it felt like that was what he meant. I got a similar message from Colleen. I thought my kids would know better. The divorce was only a few days old. That week, I stayed at a small, family-owned campground. They hosted a gathering every evening for guests, serving coffee and snacks. You could bring your own food if you wanted anything else. I was fine with that and went over just after dark. There were about 50 people around the big campfire. I had brought a glass of Merlot and was enjoying chatting with other campers. I noticed a young man off to the side who looked out of place and wasn't having a good time. I walked over to him. "Hi, I'm Jack. You seem a bit uneasy." He looked older than I first thought. "It's not that I don't want to be here. I spent a lot on my education, but there aren't many jobs for what I want to do. I help my grandparents with this campground, doing cleaning and maintenance. I don't mind the work, but it feels unfulfilling." "What did you study?" I asked. "I'm trained to be a Microsoft certified system engineer. I help set up and manage computer networks. It's a lot of technical information, but I did well in the training and I try to stay updated on new developments." "Did you have to go to a special school for that certification?" I already knew the answer, but was curious about his experience with the training. "Yes, I spent almost a year at the community college. The exams were conducted online. After the first one, I realized you really had to know your stuff or you wouldn't pass. Some people tried to memorize answers from quizzes, but most found that didn't work." "That sounds impressive. Is there anything for you around here?" "No, not really. I don't want to move to a large city either. I might have to once camping season is over since there isn't much here." "What's your name? I don't think I caught it." "Jeff. Jeff Winters. My grandparents own this campground. I think they do it for something to do and enjoy meeting all the visitors. They have friends who have been coming here for years." "Well, Jeff, it was nice talking to you. I'm going to go mingle a bit and call it an early night. See you later." I joined the group around the fire and noticed a little later that Jeff was gone. The next morning, I woke up early. After breakfast, I walked over to the main building to ask if I could stay a few more nights and use the campground as my base for exploring. A friendly elderly lady assured me that the site was mine for as long as I wanted. She handed me several pamphlets and showed me on a map the best places to visit within a couple of hours' drive. We chatted for a while over coffee, and I confirmed my guess that this lady was Jeff's grandmother. I promised to return for the campfire that night and headed out to explore. That evening, I ended up talking to Jeff's grandfather. George and Selma were wonderful people. It was clear why they kept the campground open. They had lived in the area for most of their lives and were familiar with every part of it. I mentioned to George that I had talked with Jeff the night before. "Yes, the boy is feeling a bit down. He paid for all that schooling on his own. He worked here and took on other jobs to cover the costs. Luckily, he could live at home during that time. He's here with us now, and I know he wishes he could be independent, but he doesn't want to move to a city. If he could find work in a smaller place, he'd be really happy." I could see that George truly cared for his grandson. "The certification means a lot to him, right?" I knew how significant it was and how difficult it was to earn, but I didn't want to reveal that I understood. "Oh, yes. Until he got that, we never thought about using the internet or anything like that here or at home. He designed and built the network for the campground. Every site is connected, and he set up several wireless spots so everyone can get on the internet however they want. He even set one up at home, but only he and Selma use it. I'm too old for that kind of thing." He was clearly proud of the young man. "George, do you think Jeff could show me what he's done out here with the internet? I'm a bit curious about this computer stuff and would really like to see it." "Oh, yeah," George laughed. "If you get him started on that, he'll talk forever. I don't understand any of it, but he does. He'd love to show you." "Great. I'll look for him in the morning. I'm curious to see his work. I said goodnight and headed back to my motorhome, deep in thought about what size place Jeff would consider a large city. The next morning, I was enjoying a late coffee when Jeff drove by on an ATV. I waved him over. "Hey, Jeff, want some coffee?" "No thanks, Mr. Ames. I have to make sure all the sites are clean before people arrive. We have a group coming in this afternoon." I must have looked confused. "A group?" I asked. "Yeah, they're like a team that travels together. They have leaders and everything. We just tell them what sites they can use, and they handle the rest. They really help us out because they do all the paperwork and usually leave the sites clean." He tried to explain this to me since I was new to RV camping. "That sounds a bit too organized for me. I came on this trip to get away from all that," I chuckled. "I was talking to your grandpa last night. He said you handled all the computer stuff for the campground." "Yeah, I thought I could use my training. Almost everyone wants email and internet access nowadays." "I'm interested in this computer stuff. Would you mind showing me what you've done?" "Not at all, Mr. Ames. I should be done here in about an hour. How about I come and get you right after lunch?" He seemed really happy that someone was interested in his work. "Sounds good, Jeff. I planned on just relaxing today anyway. I'm looking forward to seeing what you've set up." "Great. See you soon." Jeff zoomed off to finish his chores while I enjoyed another coffee in the warm sunlight. True to his word, Jeff came to get me on the ATV just after lunch. I said I could have walked to the main building since it wasn't far, but he laughed and said he enjoyed riding the ATV, and any excuse would do. We arrived at the main building, and Jeff led me into the office. For the next 2 hours, he explained how he set up the campground, ran the wires, set up wireless access points, and organized the network. He really understood his work and could explain it in simple terms. I was quite impressed. This young man was very good with networking. It was a pity there were no job opportunities near his home. I asked him if he would consider moving for work. He said he would move to a big city if he had to, but he wouldn't enjoy it. I asked him what he thought a big city was. After he told me, I realized that our city didn't fit that description. I liked Jeff and his grandparents. I thought maybe I could help him and them. "What about your parents, Jeff?" I asked. "Surely they don't want you to move far away." "My dad passed away in a farm accident a few years ago, so it's just me and my mom. She runs a small store in town that supports us. We're not wealthy, but we get by. I'm sure she doesn't want you to go." She told me to follow my dreams after school. If that meant moving to a big city, we could handle it when the time comes. Since there aren't many options here, I guess I don't have much choice. "Yeah, it's tough, Jeff, but you have to go where the work is, unless you can start your own business. The problem is, from what I see, there isn't enough full-time computer work around here." "I know, Mr. Ames. I'd like to stay here, but a person needs to find work. A couple of computer shops opened, but like you said, there just isn't a big enough market." "That's what I think, too. Look, Jeff, thanks for showing me around. You did a great job." "Thanks, Mr. Ames. I really appreciate it." "I'm going to go for a walk and maybe take a nap. See you at the fire later?" "Of course, Mr. Ames. My mom said she's coming too." "I'll look forward to meeting her. Talk to you later." I started walking along a trail his grandmother had pointed out to me. There were several options, from 5 kilometers to 10. I chose a mid-range distance and walked about 4 kilometers. It felt nice, just strolling and not worrying about anything but whether an osprey would catch a fish. Young Jeff had given me something to think about, so I decided to call Joyce later to see about setting up a job for him without him knowing I would be his employer. I made my call later that afternoon and explained what I wanted to do, ensuring it wouldn't seem intrusive. We decided I would act on behalf of a friend, Joyce, who was looking for someone with Jeff's skills. It wasn't entirely untrue. We were, or would be, looking for a network technician. I thought Jeff would be a great fit, and he lived nearby. That night, I met Mary, his mother, and her friend. Although they weren't a couple, it was clear they cared for each other. Mary mentioned that part of Jeff's hesitation to leave was his concern for her, which got me thinking. I caught up with Jeff the next day right after lunch, knowing he would be done with his chores. Jeff, how would you feel about moving to Kent if there was a job for you? Kent? What's there? I don't think there's much work for me. Well, I spoke with a friend last night. She said they are looking for a network technician. I have the details if you're interested. It's a city, but it's not as big as Vancouver or Calgary. They need a network technician? Why can't they find one there? There must be plenty. He sounded doubtful, which was understandable. I have no idea why. She just mentioned it while we were chatting. She's an old friend. Are you interested? Of course. Who should I talk to? Here, I wrote it down. Her name is Joyce, and she runs the place. She's very nice. I handed him the note. When do you think you could meet her? I can help by giving her a heads-up about your visit. I could probably be there first thing Monday. Do you think I actually have a chance? She doesn't know me at all. He started to sound more hopeful, even excited. Well, one thing's for sure. If you don't go, you won't get the job. Sure, there might be other applicants, but that's how it is. Even if nothing happens, it'll get you out of here for a bit. What do you have to lose? I wanted to encourage him without revealing my full intentions. He didn't realize how much I wanted him to succeed. If he wanted the job and was willing to move, it could be his. Wow. Thanks, Mr. Ames. I really appreciate this. No one has ever done anything like this for me. By the way, what's the name of this place? All I have is a name and an address. It's called JC Consulting, LLC. They do a variety of work with computers and networks. I've met some of their staff, and they seem friendly. I swear he must have been in a great mood on the way home. That night, around the campfire, his grandparents expressed how grateful they were for my help. George seemed wise to the whole situation. I didn't think I could trick him for more than a moment, but he never showed it. He was happy for Jeff, knowing his grandson finally had a chance to use his skills. The next morning, since it was Saturday and the store was closed, I called Joyce at home. Joyce, it's me. The young man I mentioned will be at the store on Monday morning. His name is Jeff Winters. Does this have to do with that mysterious call yesterday? Yes. His grandparents own the campground where I've been staying for a few nights. He set up the internet connections for the place. He is certified in computer networking. I asked him to show me what he had done because I'm interested in computers. Since he is alone out here in a quiet area, he really did a great job. Now, what I want you to do is meet with him, look through his resume, and then take him for coffee or something. After lunch, tell him he got the job if he wants it, and he can start a week from Monday. This will give him some time to find a place to live and get ready. Okay, I understand. But why are you doing this? I have to ask. Who is this young man? I've met some wonderful people on this trip. His grandparents are genuinely nice, and he is quite impressive. He isn't one to brag, but he knows a lot about networking. He has some of the same qualities as his grandfather. I thought it would be nice to help someone out for a change. All right, you're in charge. Please don't let him know that. He knows the company is called JC Consulting, but he has no idea what JC stands for. Okay, got it. We'll need to find you some angel wings. She chuckled. Not quite. Or I'll end up with a devil's pitchfork. I laughed back. I can see this vacation has really helped you. When are you heading home? I plan to be back by next Friday, a week from yesterday. I need to return this RV by 4 p.m. Then I'll have the weekend to get back to reality with all of you. I laughed at her. She noticed I was relaxed and having fun, which felt strange to me after the past few years. The next morning, George came to visit. I made him coffee, and we settled outside the RV to enjoy the sun and the quiet. "Mr. Ames?" "Just Jack, please." "Okay, Jack. My grandson means everything to us. I need to make sure that this is all legitimate." I took a moment to choose my words carefully, wanting to show that I was not just doing this out of charity. "George, can I call you George?" He nodded. "I appreciate what Jeff has done here, especially with the internet work at the campground. I've been in his shoes, and I know how much effort it takes." I kept it to myself, but I have several certifications, and my first one was the same as his, MCSE. "Yeah, I kinda had a feeling you were hiding something," George said as he continued to sip his coffee. "Well, to be brief, I just got divorced, and it was finalized about 2 weeks ago. My team encouraged me to take a break from the office, so I hit the road and ended up here. When I talked to Jeff that first night, I could tell he loves his family and appreciates working here. But he felt discouraged about putting in so much effort with little reward. My company was looking for a network technician when I returned. I was very impressed with what Jeff had accomplished on his own, considering the limited support he had. "So, do you think he'll get the job in Kent?" George still seemed unsure, but was starting to trust me. "I'd rather keep this between us, but if he meets with the office manager on Monday, he's likely to be hired. I mentioned there might be other candidates just to encourage him to go in sooner. Let's just say everything is set for him." George smiled and laughed. "I knew it. You're not just another techie." I smiled back. "Guilty. I run Jassy Consulting, LLC, which stands for Jack Ames Computer Consulting, LLC. I own the business. I spoke with my office manager yesterday, and like I said, Jeff will be hired if he shows up on Monday. But remember, you don't know any of this, right?" "Right. Now that's sorted. Do you ever go fishing?" "I haven't in years. I probably got rid of my fishing gear a long time ago. You know how it is, too much work and not enough fun. Well, after lunch, we should gather some fishing gear and see if we can catch some trout for dinner. You'll need a fishing license. Selma can help you with that at the office." "Thanks, George. I'd really enjoy the chance to fish. Catching something would be a nice surprise." "Oh, we don't use worms here. We use grasshoppers. They're easier to find. You could also try fly fishing, but it takes a bit of practice if you've never done it before." He finished his coffee and said he would meet me at the office after lunch. "George, please keep what we talked about a secret. I want to stay low-key, if you know what I mean." "No problem, Jack. What was it we didn't talk about anyway?" He laughed as he headed back to the office. At 1:30, we were fishing in a creek down from the campground. George and I didn't chat much, but enjoyed casting our lines, hoping a fish might bite. 4 hours later, we returned to the campground with 4 nice-sized trout. We took them to the cook shack to clean them. George said that Selma would cook them. I could come over whenever I was ready. I left him a big platter of fish and went back to the motorhome. After being outdoors and cleaning fish, I thought a shower would feel great. The warm water was nice. I grabbed a couple of bottles of wine, a good Merlot, and a crisp Pinot Gris, and headed to the office. George and Selma lived on the upper level, which you could access from the office by stairs behind the desk or by the outside steps leading to their porch. I took the outside stairs and found George and Selma sitting in deck chairs, enjoying the sights and sounds of nature. Selma was preparing the fish, but the grill was doing most of the work. The smell was wonderful. They were waiting for Jeff, his mother, and her friend to join us, so I poured a glass of Merlot and sat down to chat about random topics. I noticed Selma glancing at me now and then, so since the others had not yet arrived, I turned to George and asked, Did you tell Selma about our little talk this morning? Well, yes. I can't keep anything from her, but she promised me she wouldn't say, he replied, looking a bit uneasy when he admitted it. I chuckled. Okay, I'll let you off the hook, but no more from either of you. Selma came over and gave me a quick hug. You have no idea how much this means to us. Jeff has been so excited since yesterday. Mary told me he's packed and unpacked about 20 times today. She finally assured him that dressing casually is perfectly fine. Exactly. If someone showed up in formal attire, the girls would panic thinking it's a bad surprise. I laughed. Anyway, here they come. Let's change the subject and keep this to ourselves. Absolutely, Jack. We continued chatting about light topics. When Mary, Jeff, and her friend Dave arrived, they expressed excitement about the fish we had caught, and the conversation shifted to fishing spots in the creek. It was a really pleasant evening, and I felt relaxed as I walked back to my mobile home. I wasn't eager to leave. They had become good friends, but I also looked forward to getting back home. Chapter 6. A couple of days later, I was back on the road, heading home. I had been hesitant to leave the campground and the people I had met. I was already planning a return trip, this time in my own RV. If I was committing to this lifestyle, I needed my own vehicle. That thought ran through my mind as the miles ticked by. The route wasn't far if you took the quick way, but I still had 4 days remaining on my rental agreement and planned to enjoy every moment of it. I stayed at several nice campgrounds over the next 3 nights, but none felt as welcoming as Riverside, where my new friends lived. I spoke to Joyce on Tuesday and learned that Jeff was doing well and looking for an apartment. Joyce and Lisa were helping him, and the team was welcoming, seeing him as a valuable addition, not a replacement. He would really help them focus on what they do best. I got back to town on Friday and took some time to go to my house and drop off my things. I decided it was easier than loading everything into the car when I returned the motor home and then unloading it at home. Someone had been picking up my mail. I think it was Joyce, since I forgot to make other plans. The yard needed work, but everything else looked fine. The home was safe, which was not a surprise. Jamie and Colleen didn't have their new keys yet, so they couldn't get inside without breaking a window. I also didn't expect to see Bev anymore. Joyce must have been keeping an eye on things. I had just started my second load of laundry when my phone buzzed. Jack, hi, you're back. No, it's just your imagination, I laughed. Do you have eyes everywhere? Not really. I just knew you had to return the motorhome by 4 so I gave you some time to settle in and start your chores, she giggled. You can be so predictable sometimes. Okay. What do I owe the pleasure? I just wanted to ask if I should bring your mail over or wait until Monday. If you want to drop it off, please do. I'm sure I can find some snacks around here. After all, I wasn't gone even 3 weeks. I'll be there soon, she said, and I went back to my chores. I set up the lawn chairs and cleaned off the deck, getting everything ready for visitors. Joyce found me in the shed a little while later. Where are you wandering off to? She called. Over here in the shed. I'll be right there, I replied. I finished what I was doing, locked up the shed, and headed to the deck. Something cold to drink? Sure, but not beer. You know I don't like it. I remember. I've got a nice chilled Pinot Gris. I don't have chilled Chardonnay, unless you want to wait. Pinot Gris is perfect. Thanks, Jack. I went inside and got 2 glasses of wine and brought out the bottle. Joyce handed me all the mail she had picked up while I was gone. Most of it was junk, but there was 1 letter from my lawyer and 2 from Sally Fields. Glenn's letter was just for services during my divorce. My company could cover that. The first letter from Sally was about finalizing the divorce paperwork, along with her bill, which I would gladly pay. The second letter from her got me thinking. She wanted to set up a new computer system for her law firm, connecting a remote office that would handle things like real estate and wills. My only concern was how much bigger I wanted my business to grow. I needed to hold a staff meeting to hear everyone's thoughts. Meanwhile, Joyce and I enjoyed our wine together. She waited until I finished looking through the mail and said, "Well, you look like you survived your vacation. How was it being on your own?" You know, Joyce, I can't remember the last time I felt so relaxed and refreshed. It's almost like I was recharged. I feel a lot better than I did a few weeks ago. I guess I didn't realize how stressed I was. Trust me, we all noticed. The only one who couldn't see it was you. We thought you needed a break while you still could. We're glad it went well even if you couldn't stay away completely. You mean Jeff? Exactly. But we think you did well. He seems like a good fit. Nice kid, no pretenses. What you see is what you get. Thanks for confirming my thoughts about him, Joyce. He's a nice kid. I think he'll do well. Maybe my first task for him will be to design a network for Sally Fields. She asked me to estimate setting up a network for her law practice, including new software. But before I agree to that, I want to talk to all of you. We need to find out how big we want to become. I don't want to lose sight of our main focus. Joyce took a sip of her drink and thought for a moment. What do you mean by how big do we want to become? Do we want to just be another large company? I took a sip and thought for a few seconds. Well, I don't want to be a faceless company, but I also don't want us to forget what helped us get here. How much growth can we handle before it runs us instead of the other way around? Do you see where I'm going with this? Yeah, I think it's about not expanding just because we can, she replied. Exactly. I really don't want it to get to the point where we need more than 7 or 8 people to run everything. After that, it gets too big. I think we need to sit down together, all of us, including Jeff since he's new, and figure out where we go from here. Tell you what, Jack, it's the weekend. Let me reach out to Lisa and everyone to see if they are free. Maybe we could do a barbecue or something and make it an informal gathering and planning session. I know where Jeff is staying, so he's around. Lisa said she and her partner don't have plans. I can check with the techs, but knowing them, they're probably busy with some game. You don't mind, Joyce? I hate to put you out. You must have your own plans. Not at all. I think it's time we all came together. We haven't done that for a while. What about families? That's a great idea. How about a family gathering on the company's budget? I'm sure we have enough funds for that. She laughed and said, I hope so. We haven't spent much except for salaries since you've been gone. I couldn't help but laugh a little. I often thought about my spending habits. Okay, I'll make the calls while you get more wine. What day and time? She asked. How about Sunday around 1 p.m.? Everyone should be done with their weekend activities, and that gives us the whole afternoon. I was already thinking about how many chairs and tables we would need, and what the kids could do while the grown-ups had their meeting. Sunday at 1. It is, she replied, and started dialing from her phone. I left her to it and went to grab more wine from the fridge. A few minutes later, I called out to her. Pizza or Chinese? Pizza, why? That's what we're having for dinner. I called the local pizza place that I ordered from many times and got an extra-large deluxe pizza. Over pizza and wine, Joyce and I worked out the details for the company gathering. We decided on steaks for the adults and hot dogs and burgers for the kids. We were sure we could find some volunteers to grill since I didn't want to do all the work. I arranged for a kiddie pool and water slide for the little ones. They would have plenty to do. We planned for an hour of the staff meeting before the fun really began. I wanted everyone to be clear-headed for that, since important choices would be made that would affect us all. Joyce left in the early evening, mentioning she had another engagement. I finished cleaning up and got ready for the outside chores the next day, then relaxed on my deck. I felt like I was missing something, but couldn't quite figure it out. Maybe it was just that I had only been back from my trip for a few hours. Like most nights during my travels, I went to bed early. I slept very well. The company gathering was a lot of fun. About 20 people of different ages came. As planned, the staff meeting took place in my office while everyone else enjoyed themselves outside. We made a few important decisions and decided to wait on a few others. The main choice was about the contract for the law office. It was decided that Jeff would lead this project, with input from one of the techs and me. We agreed that we would only hire one more tech, preferably someone with networking experience, when it was absolutely necessary. Together, we could manage our current and expected workload. After that, we moved outside to enjoy the fun and games, and of course, the food. I went back to work on Monday. Within hours, it felt like I had never left. Over the next few months, things got busier. The contract with the law office was finished on time and within budget. I gave Jeff and the tech, Mike, bonuses for their hard work. Without the staff knowing, I had talked to my accountant about setting up a profit-sharing plan. Payouts would be given at the end of the year based on how long each person had worked with the company. The only one who might be unhappy this year was Jeff, but he had already received a nice bonus for leading the law office project. Since we didn't have much retail business, I decided we could run with a small team during the Christmas holidays. I planned to work the whole time, so Joyce and Lisa could decide who would work when, and the 4 techs could work it out among themselves. I was sure there wouldn't be a lot to do, but we needed staff available for our customers. The year-end profit-sharing checks I handed out on December 23rd surprised everyone and were warmly received. I told them they were the reason for our success, so it felt right for them to share in the profits. Lisa and Joyce were in tears, and the 4 techs were moved but managed to hold back their tears until they were alone. The next few months went by quickly. We were busy and gradually building our client base. We weren't at the point of needing to add another tech yet. The 4 techs could manage the work without too much overtime, and we kept our regular hours from Monday to Friday, closing on weekends. My biggest concern was Joyce. I found myself increasingly drawn to her. I had a rule about not dating staff, as it could create awkward situations. Other than a few dinner parties, we hadn't socialized much outside of work. I wanted our relationship to grow, but I didn't want to risk our friendship. I wasn't sure how to approach it, so I decided to wait, knowing I could find her whenever I needed to. Unexpectedly, an opportunity arose sooner than I thought. One Saturday, while I was relaxing at home, I received a call from Joyce's oldest daughter, Gloria. They wanted to surprise her for her 55th birthday and needed my help. I told Gloria to come over so we could come up with a plan. She arrived about half an hour later. Over coffee, she shared her ideas about the party she and her sister wanted to organize. My role would be to keep Joyce occupied until everything was ready. I thought of a few ways to assist, but couldn't come up with a solid idea just yet. I had time to think it through. After discussing the party for a while, Gloria asked, "Jack, do you not date staff as a rule?" "Yes, Gloria. I have learned from experience that it can lead to complications," I replied. "The reason I ask is that Mom really likes you, not just as her boss, but as a person. She thinks you're not attracted to her, and that she's not a beauty." "Gloria, I respect and admire Joyce a lot. Beauty is not just about looks. She has a unique charm, and anyone would be fortunate to be drawn to Joyce. I feel that way, but I also see her as a close friend. I'm concerned about risking our friendship because I think I could easily develop deeper feelings for her. You know, for a smart guy like you, sometimes you're not very bright. I don't know you well, but I do know my mom. She thinks highly of you, and it's not just because you supported her when she needed it. You've always treated her with respect. I bet she'd do anything for you. I can assure you, that's not going to happen. I wouldn't ask anyone to do something difficult like that, I said, taking a sip of my coffee. So you really think if I asked her out, she wouldn't mind? Gloria laughed. As I said, not very bright. She'd welcome it. Our dad was really not nice to her. Truth is, Jen and I were happy to see him go, and we're glad we haven't heard from him since. You treat our mom well and see her for who she is. If you ask her, she'll be thrilled. I was still unsure. Yeah, but I have this rule. Forget the rule. You made it. You can change it. Besides, it's about you, your mom, and Jeff, right? You're the boss. Just deal with it, Gloria said, sounding a bit frustrated. I sat for a moment, contemplating what she had said. I really wanted to date and get to know Joyce better, but I was afraid I might lose a great employee if things didn't work out. I shared my concern with Gloria, who replied as she always did, "You guys, sometimes it feels like you leave your brains behind." Jack, let me tell you, my mom is one of the most honest and caring people you could meet. Ask her out. It's about time you both have some fun. Gloria left a little while later. I promised her that I would find a way to keep Joyce busy while they prepared for the party. I wasn't sure how, but I had a week to figure it out. I settled into my chair and thought about my talk with Gloria. Maybe I was being too careful. I finished a few chores and distracted myself for a while, delaying my call to Joyce. Finally, I decided to just go for it. The worst she could do was say no, although I didn't really think that would happen. I picked up the phone and called her. "Joyce, hi, it's Jack." I felt nervous like a kid asking someone out for the first time. "I know. I've got caller ID," she laughed. I loved that laugh. It was warm and genuine. "Look, what are you doing tomorrow? Any plans?" "No, not really." "Why? What's up?" "I just felt like getting out of the house. How about we go shopping?" "Are you serious? You? Shopping?" She laughed again. "Well, a different kind of shopping. I want to look at RVs. I enjoyed it so much that I'm thinking about buying one." "So, what do you say? Want to go shopping?" "Jack, I'd love to." "When?" "How about I pick you up before lunch? We can grab some food and then check out the RVs." "That sounds perfect. I'll be ready at 11 Krieg." "Great. See you then." "Dress casually. You never know. I might need you to look under some of them," I joked, knowing she liked to dress up even for a simple meal. She giggled. "Okay, no fancy dresses. See you tomorrow." I ended the call. Well, there was no turning back now. Tomorrow could be fun or a bit awkward. I was hoping for fun. On Sunday, I picked up Joyce and we went for a quick lunch. She had never shopped for an RV or anything so big before. It was like Christmas for her. We started at the dealer where I had rented the motorhome and shared what I was looking for. I didn't need something as large as what I rented, but I wanted to tow a car for driving around. We collected brochures and got some basic pricing since there wouldn't be a trade-in. We followed the same pattern at 3 more RV dealers. None put too much pressure on me. They just explained the options they had. Feeling a bit overwhelmed with information, I drove home. Joyce probably figured we would go there since she didn't say anything. I poured us a couple of glasses of Merlot, and we began sorting through the brochures. We divided them into 3 piles: maybe, possible, and no way. The maybe and possible ones were organized by type and features. After more than 2 hours, we narrowed it down to 3 models. Now it would depend on the deal we could get. I was favoring the dealer I rented from since I knew them. Instead of ordering dinner, I decided to cook something simple. We had roast chicken, vegetables, and salad, along with some wine. I didn't usually do desserts, and I told Joyce that. She didn't mind. She wasn't much for desserts either. After dinner, I put the dirty dishes in the dishwasher, and we moved to the living room. For some reason, we ended up sitting close together on the sofa instead of me in my chair as usual. It felt very natural. Joyce leaned back and sighed happily. "Thank you, Jack. It's been such a wonderful day. I've never done anything like that before, and I loved every minute." "You're very welcome. I just needed to get out of the house and wanted to spend time with someone I really care about." "Do you really mean that, Jack? If you're joking, it's not funny. I meant every word. You know my rule about not dating employees. I've realized that I either have to ask you out and forget the rules or let you go. I don't want to let you go. I think you are a kind, funny, and smart woman. Any man would be lucky to be with you," I said softly, holding her hands gently. "Jack, I've waited for this for so long," she replied. After a moment, she added, "You need to be sure. I am a one-man woman, and my man must be a one-woman man. We've both been through difficult times, and I don't want to go through that again." I held her close and said, "I've been foolish. We should have been like this months ago. I wish I had listened to my heart instead of my mind. Joyce, I want you to know that this is not just for one night. I'm not into playing games." She moved closer to me. "Jack, please." I stood up from the sofa, took her hand, and led her down the hall. The following morning, I woke up early. It felt so nice to have Joyce nearby, gently breathing. We had spent a wonderful night together, and I felt that our relationship had shifted, hopefully for the better. I wanted to keep her not just as a partner, but also as a friend and co-worker. I got out of bed carefully and went to make coffee. We would need it to start the day since we didn't get much sleep last night. I let Joyce sleep while the coffee brewed and took a quick shower. After my shower, I returned to the bedroom where Joyce was just waking up. "Oh, hi. I was dreaming I spent the whole night with a wonderful man, and now I see it was real." I leaned over and smiled at her. "Well, we should get to work soon. I need to take you home so you can change." She laughed. "So I'm not fired? I thought you didn't date employees." I chuckled. "We haven't really had a date yet. All we did was go shopping, go take a shower. Fresh towels are on the counter and coffee is ready for you whenever you are." She giggled and got out of bed, heading to the bathroom for her morning routine. We made it through the day. I took Joyce home to change, then drove to work alone. For the first time in a while, I arrived before she did, something her co-workers teased her about. Of course, we couldn't tell anyone the reason behind it, at least not yet. As usual, we were the last to leave. I was locking the door when Joyce asked, "Jack, what do we do next? I want us to be a couple, but I'm a bit scared." "Scared? Of me?" "No, not you, but of us. I haven't been in a relationship for a while, and I don't think you have either, unless you've been keeping it a secret. I'm nervous that something might go wrong, and we might find out that we can't be together. I don't want to lose our friendship, and I don't want to lose you." I hugged her tightly. "We can only take things one day at a time. We need to learn more about each other. We need to think about what life would be like if we were together. I really don't want to lose our friendship either, and that worries me a lot. I might not be what you need. I might not be the person you believe I am. Jack, I don't think that's an issue. I've been with you every day for more than 5 years. I know what kind of man you are. Do you know what you're getting from me? I know that you are kind, funny, and smart. You have so much to offer anyone, especially someone who takes the time to get to know you. I like to think, that I'm that person." I paused, letting my words settle. "Now we're standing here on the sidewalk and it's almost dinner time. How about we grab something to eat? You're so sensible. Let's go to my place and I'll see what I have to cook." She laughed as she pulled away from me. "Okay, you lead." and I'll follow. We walked to our cars in the parking garage, and I decided to stop for a bottle of wine on the way to her apartment. When I arrived, Joyce was already there, searching through her fridge for food. "I'm sorry, Jack, but the cupboards are a bit empty. I didn't get to do my grocery shopping. I had an unusual encounter yesterday that took up my time," she said with a laugh. I loved her laughter. "Oh, so now I'm the odd one?" I chuckled. "Yes, but I find it amusing. And I care about you." She suddenly paused, realizing the weight of her words. "Yes, I really care about you," she whispered. "Thank goodness," I replied. "I'm relieved to hear that." I didn't even know if I could say those words again. "Yes, Joyce, I care about you too." She came over, resting in my arms as tears rolled down her face. I held her tightly, not minding that my shirt was getting wet from her tears. After a moment, she pulled back a little. "I'm sorry, Jack. I didn't mean to cry. I've been feeling lonely and have wanted you for so long," she said, wiping her eyes. "I was crying for me, for you, for us." She paused. "What do we do now?" "Well, as a typical guy, I'm thinking we should have dinner and then relax to talk things over. I'm not sure how your daughters will feel about us being together since we work closely. I hope they'll understand." I smiled at her. "You guys and your hunger. How about bacon and eggs? You can make the toast. Yes, we do need to talk everything through. I think my girls will be happy for me. What about your kids?" "I think they'll be okay with it. I know they might still be upset with me for the changes in our family, but they should know it was for the best. If they don't like us being together, I honestly don't care. We should just do what makes us happy and let others adjust to it." We had dinner and chatted quietly. It felt very normal. Joyce cleaned up the dishes and put them in the dishwasher. After that, we moved to the living room and sat closely together on the sofa. "Jack," she said, leaning in a bit, "you could be with any woman you wanted. I mean, I'm not perfect. I love that you say you love me. I just hope it's real. We need to work on your self-esteem. Looks don't matter as much as you think. I've told you before that you have so much to offer. I think I've been in love with you for a long time, but I didn't want to admit it. After everything with Bev, I wasn't sure if I could feel this way about anyone again." I gently rested my hand on her shoulder. Joyce was quiet for a while, and I started to think she had fallen asleep. It felt nice just holding her. "Jack, I'm so happy you feel that way. I've liked you since the day you hired me. No one has ever treated me with respect like you do. Ask my daughters. Their father made me feel worthless for so long I thought that was normal. I lost my self-esteem because of him. That won't happen again while I'm here to support you. Gloria told me a bit about your past when I hired you. She wanted to be sure I chose you fairly. It took her and her sister some time to believe me." I smiled and gently squeezed her shoulder. "Now I should head home. I didn't sleep well last night," I said with a light laugh, and she giggled. "I understand. Everything has happened so quickly it almost feels like a dream," she said as she got up. "Okay, dream about this. Where are we going for our first date and when? I need to go now. I'll talk to you in the morning." I stood up, reluctant to leave. "Jack, you can stay if you want," she said, sounding like she didn't want me to go. "I can't if I want to rest. We both need our sleep," I laughed as I opened the door. "I should go before you change my mind." I left her apartment and drove back to my empty house. Well, maybe not for long, I thought. I had barely walked in the door when the phone rang. It was my daughter, Colleen. "Where have you been, Dad? I've been trying to reach you for hours." "Hi, how are you? As for me, I'm okay. It's nice to hear from you, too." I was at a friend's house having dinner when my phone rang. "What's so urgent?" Nothing much. I hadn't heard from you in a while and was getting a little worried. She didn't sound too worried. Maybe she was just checking in on me. Well, Colleen, I do have my own life, you know. I've met someone special and really like her. We're getting to know each other better. I decided not to tell her it was Joyce yet, as I wasn't sure how she would take the news. Well, it's about time, Dad. You can't just stay alone in that big house forever. Who is she? Do I know her? She sounded relieved and happy. Yeah. I think you would know her, but I'm not saying who just yet. Why not, Dad? If I guess her name, will you tell me if I'm right? No, we're not going to play guessing games. I'll share her name when she says it's okay, but not before. I just got in, so I'll call you later. Say hi to David for me. Okay, Dad. I'll wait for your call. I'm excited to meet your mystery woman, she laughed before hanging up. Well, that went well. At least she doesn't think I'm completely alone. I changed into my sweats and sat down in front of the TV. There wasn't much on, but I left it on for some background noise. I decided to call Joyce. Hi there, just calling to say goodnight, I said. Hi. I was just thinking about you and wishing you were here. But I know we both need some rest, she giggled. Exactly. I just got a call from Colleen. I told her I met someone special, but I didn't give her your name yet. Oh, how did that go? Pretty well. I said I met someone I really care about, but I wouldn't share your name until you said it's okay. She's probably asking David a lot of questions trying to figure it out. She seemed happy for me. She said, and I quote, "It's about time." Why didn't you just say it was me? I'm fine with it. I wasn't sure how public you wanted to be about us. For me, it doesn't matter, but I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. Come on, Jack. Of course, I want people to know. Like you said, if they don't like it, they can adjust, she said, sounding both annoyed and amused. Yeah, I remember saying something like that, I said, trying to sound apologetic. But I'm not going to announce it in the paper or anything crazy, I laughed. She giggled. That would be a bit over the top. I'm going to bed now. Talk to you tomorrow. Love you. Love you too. Sleep well. I hung up and turned off the TV. I was worn out after a busy few days. The next day, Gloria called me. Jack, about the party. We need you to bring Mom at exactly 7:00 p.m. a week from Wednesday. Can you do that? I think so. Why exactly 7:00 p.m.? Only if you promise not to tell her. Jen, our husbands, and I went together to buy her a new car. The car won't arrive until Tuesday, and they need Wednesday to prepare it. The owner said he would deliver it at 5 on Wednesday night, and we want to add some things to it. So we need her to come at 7:00, not before. Okay, is this at your place? Yes, everyone but you two will be here earlier. My lips are sealed. 7:00 on the dot a week from Wednesday. I'll figure something out. Thanks, Jack. I knew I could rely on you. She ended the call, and I sat back, thinking about how to surprise Joyce. I needed to plan it carefully. The rest of the week flew by, and we didn't get much time together. For our first official date, she decided we would go out for dinner and then attend a jazz concert. I typically prefer R&B and oldies rock and roll, but jazz is fine. The important thing was we would be together. I arranged with the RV dealer to have everything ready by Sunday. He was eager to help us. I picked up Joyce early Saturday evening for dinner, wanting to make sure we wouldn't miss any of the concert. When she opened the door to her apartment, I joked, "Sorry to disturb you. I thought Joyce lived here." She laughed and playfully nudged my arm. "You're being silly. Come in, I'll just be a moment." "No, I'm serious. I didn't recognize you out of your work clothes," I said with a laugh. She looked fantastic. She grabbed her things and we headed to my car. "You look great," I said, genuinely meaning it. "Well, thank you. You clean up well, too. I hope we have a great evening. I opened the door for her to get in and walked around to the driver's side. Once I was settled, she scooted over to sit beside me. I focused on driving us to the restaurant safely. It was more than just a regular place. It was a nice dining room with all the expected touches. A friendly host showed us to our table, and soon after a server came to take our drink orders. I ordered a nice bottle of white wine, remembering that Joyce preferred it. The menu looked great, and it was hard to choose from so many delicious options. I asked, "Everything looks wonderful. Do you have any recommendations?" "Of course, sir. My name is Frederick. My personal favorite is the pork medallions in wine sauce. If you prefer beef, the filet mignon is also a great choice. I can give you a moment to decide." I thanked him as he moved on to another table. "So, Joyce, what do you think?" "I'm leaning towards the medallions." "I agree. Everything looks good. You know, I've never tried filet mignon." "I'm going with that." I waved to Frederick, who came over as soon as he could. "Frederick, we'll go with your suggestions. The lady will have the 6-ounce filet, medium well, and I'll have the pork medallions." "Very good choices, madam, sir. I'll place your order right away." "Thank you, Frederick. No need to rush. We want to enjoy our time." "And you will. I'll make sure of it." The meal was wonderful and exceeded our hopes. True to his word, Frederick ensured we were well taken care of. His team showed up right when we needed them, and he checked in often. I gave a generous tip as we left for the concert. The concert was the highlight of the night. The band played many classic hits along with some new songs they had just released. Before leaving, I bought a couple of their CDs to remember our first official date. I didn't want the evening to end. Apparently, Joyce didn't want it to end either. She suggested we go to a small nightclub nearby where she lived. We could have a drink and maybe dance a little. I was all for it. The nightclub was not as busy as I expected for a Saturday night. I noticed that they were playing big band music, which might have affected the crowd. I later learned that their busiest night was actually Wednesday. It seemed the usual customers preferred it that way. At least we could talk easily, and the music was fun to dance to. It was a perfect finish to a lovely evening. Joyce clearly wanted to come to my house for the night. We stopped at her apartment so she could grab a small overnight bag she had packed. I parked in my garage, and we went inside. A few minutes later, Joyce returned from the bedroom dressed in a nice pink nightgown and matching robe. I chuckled at her fuzzy slippers. She sat on the sofa, and I handed her a glass of chilled Chardonnay. "I think I'm overdressed. I'll change into something more comfortable, too." I quickly changed and joined her on the sofa. "Joyce, the evening was so wonderful it feels almost like a dream." I leaned over and smiled warmly at her. "I agree. I've never had a night like this before. It has been more than I ever expected. Jack, thank you so much. You make me feel special." She cozied up closer, and I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. "You are special. I had a great evening with an amazing person. I want you to remember that." She pulled me down for a sweet moment. "Is this what love feels like?" she asked. "I've never felt this way with anyone." "I don't know, but it will do until something better comes along, like the song says. Let's go to bed. I want to spend a cozy night with you. We don't have to get up until noon at least." "Why noon?" she asked softly. "We have to pick up the new motorhome tomorrow. Someone needs to drive the car home." She sat up, curious. "Jack, did you really?" "Which one?" "Tomorrow. I'll show you tomorrow." I smiled at her, and we walked down the hall to the bedroom. I woke up around 10:30 to the wonderful smell of fresh coffee. Joyce wasn't in bed, so she must have made the coffee. I heard voices in the kitchen and wondered who would be visiting on a Sunday morning. I did my usual morning routine, put on a robe, and headed to the kitchen. Colleen and David were sitting at the table with Joyce. I guessed she couldn't wait to find out who the new woman was. Joyce got up and greeted me with a pleasant good morning before getting me a cup of coffee. Colleen smiled, as did David. "Well, Dad, I guess we know who the new woman is. Good for you both." "Just had to check on me," I laughed. "Yes, the new woman is Joyce, as you already know. What are you two doing here on a Sunday morning?" "Actually, we stopped by to borrow one of your tools. I don't have my keys yet, so we rang the bell. Guess you slept through that," she chuckled. "Anyway, Joyce answered the door, made coffee, and we've been sitting here waiting for you." We chatted over coffee. After a while, Joyce left to get dressed. She came back, and she and Colleen started making brunch. It felt so natural that it was almost surprising. I nearly had to pinch myself to make sure it was real. While they prepared the meal, I quickly took a shower and got dressed. David wanted to borrow my scroll saw for a small project he was working on. "David," I said, "you're my son-in-law. You're welcome to use anything I have. Just please return it. Leave a note if you come to borrow something when I'm not here." I handed him a full set of keys to the house. "These are for you and Colleen. Feel free to use them." "Thanks, Dad. This means a lot to Colleen. She feels a bit distant ever since, well, you know, Bev." He patted my shoulder and shook my hand. "Come on, let's load this up and go have brunch." We loaded the saw and its attachments into his car and went in for a nice meal. After we finished, Joyce and I loaded the dishwasher. "Now that you have keys, you can let yourselves out. Joyce and I have something to do." Colleen looked at Joyce. "On a Sunday?" "Yeah, that's what he says. Actually, we're picking up a motorhome. She needs someone to drive the car back here, and I got chosen." She chuckled. "I'm really excited about it. We went shopping last week and gathered so many brochures. I had no idea there was so much to learn about RVs." Colleen looked at me. "A motorhome, Dad? What kind? How big?" "You and Joyce will just have to wait a little longer. If you want to hang out here, we'll be back in about an hour. Then you can come and see it," I laughed, as Joyce and I headed into the garage to drive to the RV dealer. "I really don't understand why it takes so long to fill out paperwork for such a simple purchase." Sure, it was a bigger buy than usual, but there was no financing or any of that. Thankfully, the salesperson didn't try to sell me extra things, which would have made me more frustrated. After what felt like forever, we finished the paperwork and had our orientation. I knew it would take me some time to learn how to operate everything without looking at the manual. It felt a bit like I was learning to fly an airplane. Since it was a full-service dealership, they could put on license plates and handle registration all at once. I had already set up insurance coverage, since they covered almost everything else I owned. Finally, we left the dealership and returned home. I had no trouble driving this one. It was a bit smaller than the one I rented, and it wasn't set up for towing yet. Joyce liked my choice. It was one of the top options on her list. To my surprise, Colleen and David were still waiting for us. They admired the new addition, and David was especially impressed with some of the new technology. They didn't know it, but I planned to make it available for my staff and their families. All they would need to do is buy fuel. It was quite an investment, and I didn't want it to sit unused for long periods. After they appreciated the new RV, Colleen and David left us alone. Joyce took more time to explore it, checking cupboards and closets. I was happy to sit in the driver's seat and read through the manuals. Then I got an idea. A test drive. Wednesday would be perfect. I would ask Joyce to come over after work and we could take it out to show Gloria and the others. I finally got Joyce out of the RV and parked it in the backyard for now. We settled on the back patio with a drink. It felt so natural sitting with her. I realized I had missed this kind of companionship for a long time, even before my divorce. Joyce started giggling. I asked her what was funny, and she giggled even more. Jack suggested, Let's take the motorhome to where your ex lives. It might annoy her. Why would you want to do that? I thought you weren't that kind of person, I replied, surprised. I'm not really like that, but I would love to see her reaction when she realizes what she's lost. Honestly, I'm glad we're together, and I want her to see that. She was foolish to let you go, she said with a giggle, then fell quiet. I'm really glad she made that mistake. That's in the past now. But look at it this way. If your friends at the store hadn't pushed me to take a break after my divorce, we might not be here. I think about the years I wasted. But at least we brought wonderful kids into the world. Your ex may not have been the best, but you're a great mother to your daughters. Thank you, Jack. You understand how hard it can be. It was tough growing up without love. At least I could give my girls that, even if their father didn't see their worth. She sighed contentedly, as if we were already committed to each other, even though we hadn't talked about that yet. Joyce, have you told your daughters about us? I wondered what they might think. Not yet. I'm hoping to see Gloria this week. And maybe Jen, too. Colleen seems okay with us. I wonder how Jamie will feel. He'll be fine. I was more worried about Colleen since we didn't always get along. The kids thought their mother was perfect, while I just worked to support us. Jamie started to see things differently after he talked with her when I had to make some changes. He realized the truth before Colleen did. So I think Jamie will be okay. She smiled at me, and I could tell she was feeling hopeful. I believed her daughters would support her decision, too. How about an early dinner? I suggested. I can find something to grill, or we could keep it simple with a salad. It's been a while since brunch, and I'd love to have a relaxed evening. Are you talking about going to bed early? She teased. I was thinking the same thing. I need some rest to be productive tomorrow. We decided on a salad with cold grilled chicken and a nice glass of Chardonnay. After dinner, even though I would have liked to spend more time with her, I took her back to her apartment. Chapter 9. The week went by quickly. I hardly spent any time at the office. Jeff and the team were working hard, and Lisa seemed busier than usual. I made one unexpected call to a jeweler I had known for many years. Wednesday afternoon finally arrived. I could relax after the busy days. Joyce poked her head into my office and said, "Wow, what a week it's been. What are we doing for dinner?" "How about we go to the diner for a quick meal and then take the motorhome for a test drive? I've been looking forward to that all week. It'll be a nice way to unwind." "That sounds great. Why don't you pick me up at my apartment in about 30 minutes? I'll have time to change. And then we can go to your place, pick up Maxine, and take her for a spin." "Maxine?" I asked, surprised by the name. "Yes, I named the motorhome Maxine. She'll be smart, clever, and funny, just like in the cartoons." She laughed. I sighed. "Why, do you women name everything?" "Motorhome? Seems like a good name to me." "Spoil sport," Joyce giggled as she left to change. I took a quick walk through the store to make sure everything was all right and then headed home. When I arrived, Joyce was waiting on the sidewalk in front of her apartment building. "That was quick," I commented. "Not even 20 minutes. Joyce was wearing a casual blouse and slacks, carrying only her purse and a light sweater. 15 minutes? I've been waiting for 5, she laughed. "Let's go. This woman needs to eat." I drove to my place and parked the car in the garage. "I'll just be a couple of minutes. Make yourself comfortable," I told Joyce, hoping that someday it would be like that all the time. 10 minutes later, we climbed into Maxine and set off for town. We headed to a small diner we both liked. After we were seated, a friendly young server took our order. We relaxed over coffee and chatted, enjoying each other's company. Dinner wrapped up about an hour later, and I still needed to wait before going to Gloria's place. We got back into the motorhome and drove around town to get used to handling it. Joyce was having a great time and was amazed by how much she could see from the front seat. I kept an eye on the clock, planning to arrive in front of Gloria's at 7 Mach without making it look obvious. At 6:59, I parked at the curb across from Gloria's place. What do you think? Do you think Gloria and her partner will want to see Maxine? Did you know we were coming here? She asked, sounding a bit unsure. Not at all, until I found out they lived nearby. I thought we could at least grab a coffee with them, I said, trying to sound sure of myself. Uh-huh, Joyce replied. I could tell she wasn't completely convinced, but didn't have any proof against it. Just as she stepped out of the motorhome, the front door of Gloria's house swung open. Gloria, Jen, their husbands, and a bunch of grandkids came rushing out, shouting, "Surprise!" Joyce glanced back and gave me an annoyed look, but then she was swept away by hugs and warm greetings from her family. I followed her out of the motorhome and locked it up. Gloria and Jen welcomed me with hugs and introduced their husbands, Mike and Dave. While the kids were busy celebrating Grandma, the adults felt a bit left out, so we headed inside the house. Gloria had everything ready on the deck. We were invited to help ourselves to snacks and drinks. In the middle of the lawn was a new car for Joyce, topped with a big red bow and a sign that read, "Happy Birthday, Grandma." We stood around, enjoying our drinks, waiting for the kids to bring Grandma in for her surprise. We could hear their excited voices from a distance. The look on Joyce's face when she saw the car was amazing. It changed from wonder to shock and then to joy. And soon, she was in tears. The grandkids, filled with excitement, pulled her closer to see her new car, a beautiful magenta Toyota Avalon. Though it wasn't registered yet, she could transfer the plates from her old vehicle. "I can't believe this," Joyce said, crying as she walked around her car. We all gathered around to share in her happiness. "You all shouldn't have done this. It's too much. Grandma, you have to sit in it. Look, it's open," her oldest grandson shouted, who was just 7 years old, as he opened the driver's door. Joyce sat in the driver's seat and looked around at her new ride. Cards and messages filled the inside. "I can't believe this. It's too much," she said, still teary-eyed. She stepped out of the car and began hugging everyone, saving me for last. "You rascal! You knew about this, didn't you?" "Well, kind of. I was told to bring you to the house at 7 p.m. sharp. I think we might have arrived a minute early," I chuckled. "You can blame Gloria. She set everything up." We moved to the deck, where Joyce cut the cake while Gloria and Jen served ice cream and passed out plates. Everyone except me was family. Some friends and neighbors would join us a little later. It was going to be a big 55th birthday party for a wonderful woman. Friends and neighbors arrived, and more cake and ice cream were served. Many brought their own chairs, so everyone had a place to sit. Most of the people didn't know me, but they knew I was Joyce's boss. I enjoyed meeting them and being introduced. About an hour after everyone arrived and had their cake, I stood up. "Ladies and gentlemen, I know this is Joyce's birthday party. I have a few things to say, but first, let's give Gloria and Jen a round of applause for planning this surprise." A warm applause filled the air, and I continued. "This part is for all the staff. You've all seen that big bus outside. That's my new toy. After my divorce, I went on an adventure with a rented RV and had so much fun that I decided to buy one of my own." There were murmurs of appreciation. "I know I won't use it every day, so I'd like to share it. All staff and their families can use it for vacations if they'd like. Of course, I get first choice, but after me, everyone can book it too. We'll figure out the details later when things settle down." More murmurs of appreciation followed by applause. Now, I know you think you know Joyce very well, but here's a little secret. When I first hired her, not long ago, she was very shy and wouldn't say much. She did her job well, but hardly spoke to anyone, not even me. Over time, she became more comfortable, and now she knows our techs aren't from another planet. This got a laugh, especially from the 4 techs. Please bear with me. I'll get to the important part soon. Now, we have the techs, Lisa, and even me, who all respect Joyce. More laughter. That said, I'm happy to say she has become a key part of our team. But, I paused for effect, all good things must change. Everyone was on the edge of their seats. They didn't know what to expect. Joyce, I'm afraid I have to let you go for your birthday. There was a sudden gasp, followed by a lot of surprised noises directed at me. I raised my hands to calm everyone, and slowly the noise quieted down. You see, dear Joyce, I can't have my wife working for me, can I? A stunned silence followed. It seemed no one could believe what I said. I knelt in front of Joyce and pulled a small black box from my pocket. Joyce, would you make me the happiest person by becoming my wife? As I expected, chaos erupted. Joyce couldn't find the words but nodded her head and fell into my arms. Everyone was emotional, at least the adults were. The kids didn't really understand until Gloria explained that I would soon be their new grandpa. Things calmed down, and we enjoyed the rest of the evening. All the women wanted to see the ring I had given Joyce, and the men wanted to shake my hand. Gloria pretended to be upset that I had taken attention away from her birthday surprise, but we all knew she was just joking. She and Jen were happy for their mom. Eventually, we were ready to leave. Tomorrow was a work day, but I told Joyce to take the day off to get her new car set up and registered. I said that if there were any extra costs, she could have the car service call me. On our way back to her apartment, she seemed quiet, as if she was just starting to realize everything that had happened. Jack, she said, I'm really in shock. The last thing I expected was for you to propose. And the car? I can't believe it. Joyce, I think I've loved you for years. I just didn't see it because of my past. I was wary, but my trip in the Rockies opened my eyes. I'm just glad you said yes. Even if it wasn't out loud, I said with a laugh. I didn't say it, did I? But yes. 1,000 times. Yes. I'll marry you. If our seats were closer, you might have trouble driving, she giggled. I don't want to sleep alone in that apartment. Let me grab a few things and I'll come back to your place. I decided to tease her a little. Well, you can't come back to my place. Her expression changed, not quite getting my joke. Sweetheart, it's our place, not just mine. We aren't married yet, but that's just a formality. You can move your things whenever you want. You can sublet your apartment or finish your lease. It's up to you. You're going to tease me to death one of these days, she laughed. Wait here while I pack a bag. We can get the rest later. She returned in 15 minutes, pulling a medium-sized bag. I thought I could start filling my side of the closet, she giggled. Whatever you want, sweetheart. Let's go home. I started the motorhome and drove towards the house. Jack, did I ever tell you your ex-wife wasn't very smart? I think you mentioned it before. I hope that's not how you see yourself, I replied, knowing she didn't think that way. Of course not. I think I'm the luckiest woman in the world right now. It feels like a dream I don't want to wake up from. She sighed happily and was quiet for the rest of the drive home. I parked in the backyard where we were keeping the motor home for now. After making sure everything was secure, I carried Joyce's suitcase to the house. She waited on the deck while I went to the front to open the patio doors from the inside. I found her on a lounge chair, looking upset. Joyce, are you okay? What's wrong? I could hear the concern in my voice. Through her tears, she said, Yes, I'm fine. It's just everything that happened tonight. It's so much for me. I've never been through anything like this before, and it's hard to deal with. I sat down next to her and held her close, letting her calm down. It took some time. Finally, she said, "You need to call Colleen and Jamie." Did they know about all this? No, sweetheart. The only one who knew was me, at least about the proposal. Gloria told me about the car, but I didn't tell anyone else. I hope I don't have to experience something like this again, she said. She had stopped crying, but didn't wipe her tears away. Do you want me to propose at another birthday party? I joked. You're such a tease, she said, lightly hitting my arm. I really need to clean up. You can call your kids and let them know. I could use a nice cold glass of Chardonnay. Go ahead. I'll bring your bag in and your wine will be ready when you are. I took her bag to our bedroom and went to pour the wine. As I headed back outside, I picked up the phone and called Colleen. We talked for a bit. She was happy for us and confirmed that she and David would definitely come to the wedding whenever it happened. I gave the phone to Joyce and she chatted with Colleen for a while. When that call ended, I called Jamie. He was surprised at first, but then excited for both of us. Yes, he and his family would come for the wedding and maybe visit soon so the kids could meet their new grandma. Chapter 10. We decided to have the wedding at the house. The backyard was big enough for many guests, and there was room for the kids to play. Since Joyce hadn't had a church wedding, we arranged for a local minister to officiate. We set the date for 3 months from the day I proposed. For our honeymoon, we planned a trip in Maxine. I wanted to go back to Riverside. I would be happy to spend the entire honeymoon there, taking day trips to explore the area. Once Joyce, Gloria, Jen, and Colleen began planning, I stayed out of the way and answered, "Yes, dear," whenever I was asked. Thankfully, it wasn't too often. I thought I might need to find a few big contracts to pay for everything, but I really wanted Joyce to have her dream wedding. Joyce chose Gloria as the matron of honor, and Jen and Colleen as bridesmaids. I picked Jamie to be my best man. Jeff and an old friend who was one of my first clients would be groomsmen. Getting work done was tough with all the wedding planning happening. Lisa stepped in to help Joyce, which was great. Since I was mostly providing money for the wedding, the team and I managed to keep up with our tasks. We decided to pause taking on new contracts until Joyce and I returned from our honeymoon. I believed that if we couldn't give our best effort, then it wasn't worth it. We had enough to keep things running anyway. The guest list kept getting longer. Many of our clients wanted to come, along with a lot of Joyce's friends. Most of my friends were also clients, which worked out nicely. In total, we expected nearly 100 people at the wedding. The night before the wedding, I had to leave the house. I stayed at Gloria's place. The women had completely taken over, and we men just had to go along with it. I was quite nervous as I waited at the altar for Joyce. The planners had set up the altar in a shaded corner of the lawn. They arranged chairs for all the guests, and Joyce and her attendants would walk along a flower-covered path from the patio to the altar. It looked beautiful. They even hired an organist instead of using recorded music. When the wedding march began, the attendants made their way down the aisle and took their places. Joyce looked stunning in a pale blue dress as she walked slowly down the aisle to stand beside me. I think the ceremony went well. I was a bit on autopilot, responding when needed and placing the wedding ring on her finger when asked. The caterers did an excellent job. For simplicity, we had a buffet set up in the house, with tables and chairs arranged outside. There was champagne on each table, along with some bottles of Silver Sage Chardonnay, which Joyce loved. We also planned for dancing to take place on the patio. I never figured out how they managed to book the band on such short notice. It must have been one connection leading to another. Overall, it was a wonderful day. Tired, Joyce and I left in her new car for a nearby resort where I had reserved a honeymoon suite. We learned the next day that the celebration continued until well past midnight. We changed into something comfortable, a phrase we joked about often, and happily relaxed together. Soon, we were fast asleep, enjoying each other's company. The next morning, we returned to the house after a little time to ourselves and a short nap. The backyard looked quite messy, and the caterers were just starting the cleanup. We jumped in to help, and soon other family members joined us as they arrived from their places. Once they finished packing up the chairs and tables, Joyce and I got our camper, Maxine, ready for our trip. I'd invited George and Selma to the wedding, not really expecting them to come. Since the campground was open, it was hard for them to get away, but they appreciated the invitation. I managed to get them to hold a spot for us, ideally near the main building for easier visits. We left early in the afternoon, planning to reach Riverside the next day, so our first journey was short. We towed Joyce's Avalon because it was easier than bringing my bigger car. We arrived at the first campground I had stayed at during my solo trip. It felt like a long time ago. We didn't bother to unhook the car, just parked for the night and made a simple dinner. I noticed that other campers were stopping to congratulate us. They didn't know us, so it was puzzling until I saw the sign the kids had attached to Maxine. It said in big letters, "Young Newlyweds at 29. We decided to leave it on until the next morning. The next afternoon, we pulled into Riverside and were welcomed warmly. Jeff had called his grandparents the night before to tell them about the wedding and my offer for them to use Maxine. We chose to stay there for at least a week, using it as a base to explore. George insisted that we shouldn't pay, saying it was their wedding gift to us. I made it clear that if we stayed the extra week, we would be paying for it, no discussion. In the end, we decided to enjoy our time there for 2 whole weeks. We could visit more places another time. We had a wonderful time exploring the area, spending time with George and Selma, and enjoying each other's company. Jeff's mother and her friend Dave came over a few times, and we shared delightful visits together. We discovered a small shop nearby that sold charming jewelry, and we bought bracelets and necklaces for our grandkids. Mostly, we just enjoyed being together and sharing special moments whenever we felt like it. The 2 weeks flew by, and soon it was time to head back to Kent, back to work, and to start our new lives.
What's up, story lovers? This is the Story Guy, and if you're hungry for crazy tales and mind-blowing narratives, you've come to the right place. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our weekly dose of crazy cheating stories, fun fiction and gut-ripping comedy from around the world. But that's not all. We also create our own original stories, and trust me, you won't find these anywhere else. Want even more spine-tingling reads? Head down to the description and grab our exclusive story collections. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.